Good afternoon. I've always been taught that any good meeting starts on time and ends early, and at least I can take the starts on time part. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. We've been talking with ALA about possible collaborations, and one of the early things that we thought we could do is pull folks together and have a half-day workshop. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going to be involved with that and why we're here in just a moment. I have a quick ask, which is if you are at a table alone, or if you're at a table with 2 or 3 people, if you could sort of squish in. One, we didn't have enough agendas to go around, so you'll find some on the tables. And 2, we have some work that we're going to have you guys do, and so you're going to need to make friends, as it were. So, let's talk about why we're here. So first of all, welcome. This is a put on from sort of a cast of thousands coming down and helping. Folks from the Expect More Collaboratory and our partners, some of which are probably in the room, working with one of our production partners, Every Library, that you'll hear about, and it's been really fantastic working with them. They've got some amazing content and ideas to work us through today. And with support from TechLogic, which we'll talk about in a moment, really making it happen. And thanks once again to ALA for the time and the availability. So you're going to hear from me. You're going to hear from a good friend, Catherine Dice, who's in the back. She's going to be giving you some help with collaboration. From Every Library, John Kraska is up front, who heads it up and has brought together, once again, just a brain trust of folks from PC Sweeney and Erica Finley, Brian Hart, and Peter Bromberg is here as well. Peter, where are you?
He'll be here in about an hour.
He'll be here in about an hour. All right. And we have some guest speakers from Library Journal. Rebecca Miller is here. And from the University Maryland iSchool, we have Lindsay Sarin, who's taken a moment from building an undergraduate program from scratch. She had to run away from Maryland to Orlando to relax, I guess it is. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. And thank you for being here. For those of you who don't know what is the Expect More Collaboratory, the Expect More Collaboratory is a group of library organizations and library associations. We have some commercial companies that have come together and really want to talk about how we can prepare our libraries to support a community-based function, how we can advocate for librarians and libraries, and how we can truly embrace and move forward and really be part of the larger trend that's going on that certainly we see in ALA through presidential initiatives. We see things like the Aspen Institute. We see this all over. And so how can we put together advocacy materials? How can we develop learning materials, resources, books, workbooks, online training and tutorials? And ultimately, and this is a good example today, building a network of innovation. You folks in your libraries are doing some amazing work, supporting entrepreneurs, supporting communities, supporting reading, supporting scholars, supporting doctors and lawyers. And we're all inventing really interesting ways of doing that, of embracing the expertise and knowledge within our community and bringing that together. And so we want, through the Expect More Collaboratory, to bring folks together to share that knowledge. And today's one example. We do that online. We do it through workshops. When composing things like the Expect More book, we do that by soliciting input and feedback. You can get more information on the Expect More library. And one of the really important things we did was we work with really smart people and really well-aligned organizations. And so we are very fortunate that in the middle of this process, really reached out and found a fabulous partner in Every Library. So I'm going to ask John Kraska to come up and talk a little bit about Every Library.
Thanks, sir. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you.
Hi, folks. I'm John Kraska, founder and executive director for Every Library. When I call people on the phone and say, hi, I'm calling from Every Library, I get the snort. The idea behind calling it Every Library was that any library ballot measure anywhere should matter to every library everywhere. We exist as a new type of organization in the library advocacy ecosystem, even though we've been around since the beginning of 2013. We're set up as a 501c4, which is different significantly around how money is used in politics than a 501c3 organization. 501c4, if you listen to NPR, you watch Fox News, you hear about super PACs. You know how super PACs can raise and expend unlimited funds to advance their nefarious special interests? Well, you are our nefarious special interest. We do not have unlimited funds. We are set up as a donor-supported organization to provide pro bono, for free support to libraries, library communities when they're on the ballot. We've done about 36 elections to date. We've won 27 of them that we've done, from big towns like New Orleans to small places like Darby, Montana, or River East, Illinois. Big ones like $9.7 million for New Orleans, little ones like $12,000 a year for a new levy for the town of California, Missouri. You know California, Missouri? It's near Mexico, Missouri, Nevada, Missouri. It's a nice little spot. We're set up to do this pro bono because we've got donor support. It's individuals like yourselves. It's individuals from around the country, inside the library industry, as well as outside the library industry, that are donating to support our pro bono activity. That works with the staff on how do we talk about not just where's the money going, but the key question for voters is also who's spending my money. One of the reasons we are so excited about being here today is because we have some teaching and learning to do with you guys about the librarian as candidate. My colleague Erica Finley will be up in a few minutes to talk about that. The idea that where's my money going, I'll get into that in a minute. We also are doing a few other public-facing things and professional-facing things I want to share with you, a little bit commercial time. We've recently been working during the primary election cycle on a project called Vote Libraries 2016. Vote Libraries was targeted very specifically in certain states 10 days before the election, the primary election, to say to folks, if you carry your voter ID card and your library card in your wallet all year, you are a special interest voter. Let's sign up for our lists. Let's talk to you about what libraries need around the country. It's been very successful. We're building out that unique list of people, just citizens, just civilians, in order to kind of go proactive, if you will, instead of reactive all the time. That has got a long tail to it, and we'll be doing vote libraries, before elections again and again and again. We're also trying to help leaven the conversation in the profession. We've recently started a journal called The Political Librarian. It's a fairly provocative title. I appreciate Lindsay Sarin, who's also going to be speaking to you, being our series editor for that. The Political Librarian is intended for junkies and policy wonks, to talk very specifically about local politics, local policy. I used to work at ALA. I love the ALA. I got good friends and colleagues who are still at the ALA. We don't touch federal issues. We don't touch anything that happens in D.C. The policy and the legislative agenda there from the D.C. office is fantastic. There's a spot in the states, some of them are really well built out for that state house level advocacy. They've got the infrastructure, they might have an executive director, they might have a lobbyist. Awesome, we can help a little bit. There's some other states that we come in and kind of nudge and bring our unique capacities to certain very specific bills. If the library is being threatened like it was in Michigan for the SB 571, where everyone was going to be gagged before an election, we got involved in that with the Michigan Library Association. It's exciting. Zip code level activity. With the political librarian in particular, what's it like to be running a tax-supported organization? What's the policy issues around that in my zip code? We want to tell that story from your perspective and advance the conversation. Likewise, we've got 3 public-facing websites which are going to be condensing, I think, into one very soon. But everylibrary.org, if you need resources, we don't do toolkits. We're not a toolkit kind of group. But if you need resources to get in touch with us, votelibraries.org, which has been supporting our public communications around that campaign, and then the action.everylibrary.org site, which Patrick Sweeney is going to be addressing in more detail a little bit later. So we also want to thank TechLogic, and I'm going to let David, who's got a longer tail relationship with them, to talk a little bit more about them. But I do appreciate it as well. They're a donor of ours. They're a nice partner for our activity. They've added some real capacity to the work that we're doing. So, David?
Thank you very much. So we're here with the generosity of the TechLogic folks. They do some amazing products, and with RFID and with sorting systems. But what I really was attracted when they called up and said, can we work together, was how do we free up librarians and library staff to concentrate on the important things of the community needs, building programming, learning, knowledge, etc. And so we're very much in line with that. So I want to really give a special call out to TechLogic. They've been putting on a series of these Expect More speaker series. Some of you may have seen them at Massachusetts and Florida and others, and California. So they're a great sponsor for us, and we really thank you for helping us here today. So what are we going to do? We keep talking about it. Let's get down to it. Here are some of the outcomes that we're looking for. First of all, we need to define the need to advocate for librarians and library staffs as well as library institutions. I'm going to talk about that a little further. But our goal here today is to talk about, as a profession and as professionals, how do we advocate and let our communities know about the importance, right? Buildings are great. Collections are wonderful, but frankly, they're buildings and collections without much utility unless it takes the expert and the community engaged working together to make it happen. Which is very much in line with the coming theme of our new ALA president about the experts in the libraries. We want to talk about articulating the potential dangers and opportunities for advocating expertise. Not everyone's comfortable with the concept of advocating for librarians, and there is a potential downside to it. So we want to look at those and walk in with our eyes open. We want to have a network of people to follow up on ideas and implementing the content presented. In other words, this is an introduction, but it's also an introduction with each other. The real important work that's happening here is at a zip code level. I love that phrase, it's now stolen. And so learning about neighbors and even folks across the country that can be useful. Be able to identify and analyze the problem you hope to solve and address your community. We're going to go through some specific exercises. We want you to have learned to be able to apply power mapping, one of those exercises, to your situation. It's important to know that our community, we use that word rather generically sometimes. Some of us mean the people with cards. Some of them mean those who come into our building. Some of them mean students or faculty. But we really need to talk about our communities not simply as them or this anonymous front, but really a set of power to help us do our work. Power in the form of a charter, power in the form of tuition, power in the form of funding, support, etc. And to begin, this will be our stretch goal, to begin to define a national agenda around advocating for experts in the libraries. What is it that we can do locally, but what is it that we can do together? Right? There's a reason we're in the American Library Association, but it can be somewhat limited when we need to talk about what we need to advocate for as librarians and what images and what do we want to put forth. So that's what we're going to seek to do this afternoon, with a lot less of this and a lot more talking soon. And I just want to talk a little bit about what is the problem that we're here to solve. Why are we having this, right? We've been talking about advocacy for a long time. I have people who come up to me and say, please stop using the word advocacy. And I said, why? And they said, one, it's unseemly. I like that one. Two, is it only the mentally challenged and criminal need advocates? That was a good conversation after that one too. But actually the best one I heard, I was speaking with a gentleman in New York, and he's actually doing his dissertation work on it, and he says, I don't use the word advocacy anymore. And I said, why? He says, because it sort of takes away from what it really is, which is relationship building. What you're doing is not shouting at someone for 30 seconds about how important you are. I'm sorry, picking on you, but right? It's really building a relationship to say, this is why, what we can do for you and what we need from you. And building that connection, building connections between elected officials, between provosts, between faculty, between all sorts of folks. We've seen, for example, in medical library settings where the librarian actually goes on rounds with the doctors, so that as doctors are encountering and coming up with information needs, what is this, what other treatments have been available, boy, I need more information for my students, the librarian's there to deliver. At the same time, just as nurses have gone in and provided some background support for patients, librarians are going in. My favorite story of this is that a librarian, when in a children's hospital, there is a diagnosis made and the doctor is going to talk with the family. Before the doctor walks into that room, they invite the nurse and the librarian who are briefed on what's about to happen. I'm about to tell this child and their parents that they have cancer, diabetes, something of that nature. Doctor goes in and has that conversation, and once the family sort of addressed that, nurses are there to provide support. But the librarian during that time has been doing a Google search on her iPad. And not with the IP address of the hospital, but a unique IP address so that it doesn't quite get filter bubbled. And then when the family's ready, she sits down with the family and says, okay, these are the top 10 results. Let's go through, because we know this is the first thing you're going to do when you hear this. This one's an ad. This one comes from AMA. This one has this kind of support and does more or less information therapy to walk them through. The doctor benefits because the doctor knows that they're going to have a better informed patient and family. The family benefits because now they have someone to help them through. And the librarian benefits because he is now part of the core medical process. That's the kind of relationship that happens. And advocacy isn't just a matter of, look, we're important. It's being important, but also recognizing that that importance requires support, money, time, effort, attention. Someone once said, if you're not at the table, you're usually what's being served on the table. So building those relationships is what we're part of. I just came back from England to the Society of Chief Librarians. It's more or less the library directors of large public libraries. And they came together, and I said to them, when I looked, I said, you guys look much healthier than I thought you would. If you follow Twitter, you're just assuming that right now in the UK, there's just this sort of road warrior-like mentality that, you know, people are running by libraries and burning them as they go to the next one and chopping people off the knees. And I was talking with the folks. I said, what's going on? And they said, well, there are things happening. And there are things that are not necessarily good. They're closing libraries. Some of them are closed, however, for strategic purposes. They're closing a library here to open a library here because there have been demographic and shifts and industrial shifts, and we needed to realign. Some of them are closing because they didn't have high use. Some of them are closing because, yes, there's a short-sighted council measure. But right now, the advocacy around it is all about don't close our libraries. If you close one library, you close them all. It's horrible. And there's a group out there that's advocating for libraries. And they're advocating so that any cut is unacceptable. And it turns out that they've aligned very much to a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Attack-oriented press. That the media is very much looking for the government to screw things up. And they see this advocacy coming out that the government is screwing up by closing libraries. And so it becomes this very, very feeds on itself cycle about libraries are being closed, libraries are in desperate problems, libraries are in trouble. And they're also wrapping themselves around this wonderful nostalgia of books and the smell of books and leather binding. And so when you look at the advocacy that that group is putting together, it comes out as they're closing lots of libraries, which becomes a negative cycle, because of course they're closing libraries, so they're going to close them all. Isn't that so sad? And we need to keep them because it's all about books and materials. And that's turned into a very interesting response by certain areas in the UK that says, you're absolutely right, we're not going to close our library. We're going to fire the librarians, and we're going to staff them with volunteers because it's all about the books and the smell and the chairs. So the danger is if we continue to look at this and advocate for libraries and libraries and libraries and libraries and learning and building and glass structures. I mean, let's face it, American libraries, I always love the annual library porn issue that comes out. You know the one, right? It's the best architecture of the year. And it just boggles my mind that we allow pictures of libraries that are empty to be put out by our official press. So we have to think about what is a co-story saying part of the power of this library is, yes, it's a place. Yes, there are resources. But they're there because of the work of professionals and staff and dedicated experts that make it happen. And so from that conversation, and this was the problem, is that the Society of Chief Librarians had amazing stories to tell, very much the stories you've probably heard this past conference, about maker spaces and how that's allowing democratic access to manufacturing, about information resources helping people escape poverty and find new opportunities, about attempting to educate people about economic consequences of large referendums on exiting the EU. But the idea is they had a story to tell, but there was no coordination or discussion among librarians to try and get that message together. And so it became this fractured message, which turned into a matter of sort of misguided advocacy. And so the question amongst ourselves is, how can we today talk about adding to really excellent work on promotion, discussion on the importance of libraries, with the important discussion of the professionalism, expertise, and power that library staff, professional librarians, and trained librarians bring to this system? So not instead of, not in place of, but very much in complement to. So that's our goal for the day. And that's sort of our cautionary tales. And what I ask of you is to bring your experience with you. Bring the idea of what's worked, but also be very clear on what hasn't. Right? We all have the loved to death story, right? You go to the party, someone asks you what you do, you tell them you're a librarian, and they say, oh, always wanted to be a librarian. I love reading. I just read all day. And you're like, right? We have to talk about the power of these things. I had a friend who was in the field of allied health, right? So not the doctors, not the nurses, but things like radiologists and medical technicians and such. And he said, someday I'm going to start this group, I'm going to call it SPONGE. I said, what is it? He said, the Society of Preventing Nurses from Getting Everything. He says, because the nurses have done a remarkably good job of moving beyond the just assistant, support to the doctor. They have a function of health, and they've become the idea of professional nurse practitioners in a whole field of nursing. We've seen realtors with hilarious ads and others go from, Zillow is going to put you all out of business. Soon we are going to eBay our next house. I wish we could do that. To, no, you need someone to help you navigate the mortgage system and the law and policy and help you find them, right? We have examples of professions that have gone through identity setting within our communities. Now, the great news that we have is that librarians have a brand that most people would die for, right? We talk about Apple and Google having positive brands. Put it next to libraries and librarians, and it fades. We are amazing in our love. But, as John Palfrey warns us, often wrapped in nostalgia. And it's time for us to create a new nostalgia. Oh, you're a librarian? That's great. I always wanted to save people's lives. Oh, you're a librarian? It must be amazing to educate children. Oh my God, to help lawyers, well, maybe not that, to help doctors save lives, right? That's the new nostalgia that we want to talk about setting up. And so this is just an early preliminary beginning, but I hope it's part of a larger conversation that we have. So with that, I will turn it over to talking about voter attitudes, not altitudes, attitudes.
If you're up here the whole time, you're going to be stuck.
I'm going to sit down. Okay.
Cool.
I'll be back.
All right, so I'm not a librarian. I don't have an MLS. I've never worked in a library. I am not a librarian. I have to apologize for that sometimes when I'm talking with communities because they want to meet you. When I go in there and start talking to city council or the county government folks, which we do sometimes to help early work around getting to the ballot, I always have to hedge. I then kind of use the insider speak with them and say, I'm a political consultant. They're like, oh, okay, I get that, because they're politicians themselves, but I'm not a librarian. I'm not approaching this from the perspective of somebody who's been through the work life, through the training in the academy, through you've been very welcoming to me, You've been very welcoming to me. It's been a real joy to get to know so many folks in this space. I've been a trustee at my local library. I was a trustee for the Berwyn Public Library. Anyone want to shout out Berwyn? Berwyn, Illinois? Thank you. Y'all should have shouted out for Berwyn.
You guys have people in the bar, right?
Yeah, we got people and we got bars, and it's all good stuff. And Salernos, thank you. The trusteeship that I held was both fiduciary and policy. But the funnest thing I got to say to people was, let me tell you about my librarians. And when I said librarians, I meant everybody who worked there. And I, not being a librarian myself, I have got a lot of respect for the degree. I got a lot of love for people who work as a page and a clerk. I know for sure that when folks run up to you in the grocery store and say, Miss Karen, I love you, you're the sweetest thing. The kids run up to you in the grocery store, their parents don't know. We're using the term librarian here, or the experts in the library here, as this session progresses, I have a lot of respect and a lot of love for you all. I don't care what your job title is. I want to stand next to you and watch and enjoy when that kid runs up to you and says, oh, Miss Karen, I love you. As a trustee, saying, let me tell you about my librarians, that dawning realization, that love thing that happens, the overage of love. Oh, you're on the board of trustees for the library. That must be, well, sometimes it was that, David, but sometimes it was also like, why do we need libraries? Everything's on the internet. I've seen it at conferences where we're in the hotels and we're going up the elevator and somebody says, you guys here for the what conference? The Kentucky Fried Chicken Conference, which happened in, where were we for that one? In Vegas, yeah. The Kentucky Fried Chicken Conference, and saying to them, oh, hearing my colleagues, I'm here for the library, you guys must read a lot. Oh, that must be the most boring conference in the world. Everybody's quiet, they all go to bed early, they read a book. We laugh hysterically and we take a selfie with them in the elevator. There's a negative impression of librarianship that I'm concerned about, because when I have a group of folks going out and talking about their tax measure, where's my money going, And the effective people who are doing it, who's spending my money, when they're going out not as the librarians themselves, but as the representative of the librarians, and they run into that, it's negative not in terms of a pushback, oh, you are evil people. No, it's negative by omission. It's a death of a thousand silences. We want to work on that nationally. We want to work on that locally. We want to change that narrative and dialogue. Part of the frame in the room today, though, I want to ask you guys some questions here and then take you through some data. I want to ask you, anybody who wants to volunteer here, to just stand up and tell me. I want to hear if we're right or wrong in terms of how we're defining this project. That there's that abundance of nostalgic love that needs to be updated, and there's an abundance of silence that needs to be filled with the truth of what it's like to be a 21st century librarian. Have you got that cocktail party conversation that David described? You got that elevator conversation that I described? What's your favorite one? What's the one that you're like, oh, I wish I could talk to that guy. I'd have a great comeback if I had only had time to prepare. Anyone want to share? Yes, please.
So I was recently on the Bloodmobile making a donation. Bob has said, so librarians, what do you meet about, if you don't mind telling me? I said, well, I just had a session on active shooter situations.
Yeah,
Oh, that threw her for a loop.
I bet. I bet.
I said, that, and then how to make summer reading a really exciting, better thing.
Right?
It was sort of fun. It's just a little bit of aha that we're not just hidden away.
Yes, please.
I have the privilege of being a library director, and so when I meet somebody and they start in with, oh, you're a librarian, I say, well, I have 300 employees, I manage a $40 million budget, we have 28 locations that includes logistics. You name it, we do it, right? And then they kind of go, oh, yeah, it's like a small company.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yes, please.
I was in a mental health first aid training, not with other librarians, just with people from social workers, an ex-cop, somebody who was actually one of my patrons, which is really weird, who was just randomly at the training. And then we did 2 truths and a lie. The thing where you say 2 things that are true and
Yeah.
1 thing that's a lie. And I'm like, well, I have 6 kids and I have a library tattoo and something else. And they're like, oh, you don't have a tattoo.
It was more believable that you had said, yes.
Whatever else it was that I said,
Yeah.
they thought that I had 6 kids was more believable than this.
And then why the hell would anybody have a library tattoo?
I know.
Right.
Then I showed them.
Well, first I get, you don't look like a librarian,
Mm-hmm.
and then you must be really smart.
Yeah.
You must know everything.
I,
Don't turn that down.
yes. Yes. Let me hear somebody threw a lot of shade at you. When they're like, okay, like when you said to them, I'm a librarian, they came back and gave you just total shade. Like, what's the worst thing that you usually hear? Is it that they don't have any idea?
It's that everybody has computers at home.
Yeah. Everybody's got computers at home.
Everybody has a computer, everybody has a tablet, so then there's no need for books.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you need a librarian when there's Google? Quote from my father.
Oh. Happy Thanksgiving, Dad.
Do you really need a master's degree for that?
Oh. Yeah.
Really?
Okay. Our thesis here is basically that the current perception of librarians, of course, has been rooted in nostalgia. But the current perception of librarians has also been disintermediated by these new technologies. Yes, please.
You know how you want me to tell you you're wrong, though?
Tell me. Yeah, I do.
Okay, so I end up hanging out, I'm in New York City, and I do technology at the library, and so I end up hanging out with a lot of civic technologists.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I go to a civic technologist hackathon, or a conference of IT people, and I say I'm a librarian, I don't get ever from them, oh, you must read a lot. I get, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I am, why are you here? That's great. Are there any other librarians here?
Yeah.
Like, you guys are amazing.
Yeah.
And I get that every single time.
I'm saying yes and here. Yes, that's a cool, unique story. And that's part of David's love. That's a super geeked out form of David's love, So I think we're here. when we went to South by Southwest, and Lauren was part of that. Yeah, exactly. Went to South by Southwest. ALA has been taking some fantastic leadership roles on bringing librarians to South by Southwest. We've worked with this group also earlier in the process on, as every library, bringing us together, as librarians at South by Southwest. South by Southwest is the biggest international technology and policy conference that then turns into like Woodstock for hipsters and musicians. It's amazing. When you show up and talk to a venture capitalist about libraries, they look at you like, we're Google, we're going to disintermediate you. We've buried you already by what our apps are doing. And then you tell them, as a representative of, let me tell you about what the librarians actually do. Venture capitalists fundamentally are librarians. They're all about discovery. A lot of them are about leveling things. A lot of them are about how do we federate information? How do we federate searches? How do we have a taxonomy that's not some crappy folksonomy? They get you. But it takes a lot of effort to do one-on-one. It takes an awful lot of effort to do one-on-one. And that's what you're going to have to do, all of you here in the room. I'm sorry. Here's what we know. What do we know from the campaign trail? This data set comes from OCLC and the From Awareness to Funding study that was done in 2007. OCLC, From Awareness to Funding study, where the first question on the survey part was, are you a registered voter, yes or no? If yes, you can take the survey. If no, they'll kick you out of it, basically, because we want to talk about taxes. And voter intent is what does taxes. I respect this data set a lot. It's held up for a number of years. It's getting a little long in the tooth. It's pre-Obama. It's pre-recession. Post-Trump on this, whether he wins or loses, folks, the electorate is different, the demographics. The heart of America has evolved in a different way. Some would say it's gotten more angels in our better nature. Some would say it's become more about the other. I'd love to see this data set rerun, and I'm hopeful. What we know from that question, are you a registered voter, yes or no? Then there's a whole series of other questions that I'm exposed to the answers to that have been sitting around for years. What they did with it was to do the Geek the Library project, which I've dug. It's over now. What we did with their data is we set up a political action committee for libraries. 37% of the American voting public will definitely vote for a library, whether they use it or not. Whether they use it or not. I'm going to come back and stress that a little bit more later. But whether they are, this country is littered with buildings and wings and shelves and nameplates from people who are donors, who are too rich, too wealthy, too whatever. It's littered with this. They are not experiencing the library as a user. It also means that our marketing material to those 37%, the core of our humans who believe in their heart, their head, or their gut, that what goes on there is cool and important in the community, and what you do every day is transformational, those people are not being reached by our marketing. Because we do a lot of our marketing, and I'm challenging you about this, we do a lot of our marketing over the reference desk at the Circ desk to our closed circulation newsletter. We look at library card holders. And when we market generally to the public, and I'm painting with a very broad brush here, but when we market to the public generally, we require them to become a user to love us. Come in and use the library, you will become transformed. That's great. That's a component. I'm not suggesting you stop doing that, but yet there's a whole bunch of humans here who are the base of our support who have media consumption habits that are different than what you do. There are a bunch of humans here who don't care about it themselves. They're going to Netflix and chill. Or they got an Amazon account and a Netflix account and all that, and yet they love to hear what you all are up to. 37% of the American public that's a believer in their heart, their head, or their gut is not a majority anywhere of voters. It is 13 points short of 50% plus one human we need in most states to pass a library ballot measure, 66.7% that you need to pass a ballot measure in California or Idaho. It's the start of a coalition, though. It's the start of a coalition of believers with the other 37%. The 37% who will probably vote for the library, they're cool with you guys as the library. They may or may not be users. They may or may not be in there every day. I don't know. Because it doesn't matter how they sort out. Their user status doesn't matter. 37% of people who are like, okay, cool, it's nice that you're a librarian, it's nice that you guys do library stuff. It's not their biggest issue, you know? They're questioning about where's my money going and who's spending my money. They're suspicious about where's my money going. They're not anti-tax. They're legitimately suspicious. In my town of Berwyn, in Berwyn, Illinois, we certain streets, some of you have heard this story before, but I love it because it's true. The street signs were white with black letters. You know, Scoville, where I was born, Winona, where I grew up from like 10 years on, Fairfield, where I bought a house and I'm raising my kids. They're now blue with white letters and a little bigger. And I immediately thought to myself, whose brother-in-law has the contract for signs? We're civically involved in that community. I'm on the library board. I was on the library board. My wife's on the school board. My dad was zoning board president. But my granddad, my dad, me and my sons, we have a legitimate reason to be suspicious of that. No offense to anybody in current government, but prior government, you know, FBI's been out a time or two to Berwyn. Not everybody's got that same level of story, but everybody's got a story about, where'd my money go? Where'd my money go? The who is spending my money is what we want to help you break through with, because the suspicious voter needs to see you guys as the legitimate and unique source of transformational engagement for all ages and stages. The questioning voter just needs to hear that it's legit, that there's been a board and a staff and some competent humans who've put together a plan that makes sense. That goes for the public space, which we do a lot. It goes for the university and college space. When the provost office is like, well, last time that somebody went out for R&D money, I don't know. It goes for the K-12 environment. This is a coalition, though. 37 plus 37 is 74. I'm not guaranteeing that with every election that we work on. 37 plus 37 is 74 is 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 people. We'll have a good conversation with you about where's my money going and who is spending my money. They will have a good conversation with you. You're going to get your the door slammed in your face a couple times, though. And I'm apologizing to you in advance, but you're here in this room for this reason. You're going to be tough enough. The 26% of people who will probably or definitely vote no, according to the OCLC from Awareness to Funding study, they are going to vote no for two reasons. One, basically, is that they can't afford it this election. I get that. I'm compassionate about that. The other reason is any tax is a bad tax. Any tax is a bad tax is a fundamentally different approach to government than I believe personally. I look at a progressive tax policy to fund the common good as being one of the noblest things that America has come up with. We tax ourselves progressively, and we could argue whether sales tax or use tax or property tax is or isn't, blah, blah, blah. I'd love to have that conversation with you because I want to learn from you. Any tax is a bad tax. That's the ultimate no. We lost an election in Plainfield, Illinois. Anybody know about this one? Where the Koch brothers, the Americans for Prosperity, came out against it. A few days before the election. It was a Tuesday election, Thursday beforehand. Phones started ringing all over Plainfield, robocalls. Direct mail showed up on Saturday. The robocalls and the direct mail that showed up never mentioned the library but once. They threw a little shade on the fact that the library wanted to be LEED certified. And by being LEED certified, they need a staff shower, so that people can come in and, you bike to work and blah, blah, blah. This is the noblest part of the design of the building, was it's going to be LEED certified. They mentioned that, but it was just sort of like who needs a shower? Look at those librarians, they need a Taj Mahal. They spoke about nothing around the intent of that library community to change the landscape for generations to come in Plainfield as embodied in a new facility that librarians can work at. Not, any tax is a bad tax. We don't like taxes. You're tired of taxes. Vote no, and they did. We lost part of our coalition. We didn't lose the believers. We were all crying in our beer at the after party. We lost part of those suspicious voters because the 26% who always vote no, who are any tax is a bad tax, they weren't affected. It was the middle part. Yes, please.
I'm struggling because, to me, part of that is, I know that, and I don't want to get too down in the weeds, but I know that you love to do things like LEED certified They are not required. They are not something that every community wants. Did the community want a LEED certified building?
I would,
I know it's great to have a shower. I'm just saying, if you don't know your community and what their will is, maybe you scale back your design and you don't need to be LEED gold, because really what you're doing is paying a lot of money, and I say this as a library director, for something that is totally unnecessary and often does not work as a building. I know this.
the Where's My Money Going is focused for library campaigns on an open, transparent, and legitimate process of community consulting. And that's why we got involved with Plainfield. I believe firmly that they engage in an open, transparent, and consultative process over the long term to find out community interest and need. You can always do more surveys, you can always have more conversations. Part of the conversation is to finally take it to the ballot. When it comes to all the rest of that, I'm going to refer you to the Sustainability Roundtable and their committee sections. I'm unqualified for that. All right, more from the OCLC from awareness to funding research that we've seen validated in different polls and different elections over the years, too. I talked about this before. The library user status doesn't matter. A voter's willingness to support increased library funding is not driven by or limited by their use. I love this line. In fact, the advocacy research found that there's little correlation between frequency of library visits and willingness of voters to increase funding for their libraries. That's a thrill, because now we know what to do. Now we know what to change. They see the library as a transformational force. They hold a belief. I love that in the responses, the word belief is in there. It defies reason and logic. It's in your gut. It also defies, in some ways, well, it defies reason and logic. That's really enough to defy. And that they believe that the institution is a transformational force in the world. A force. Which by the transitive property means that you are all transformational change agents. Libraries Transform. I love Libraries Transform. I want to go into every community with Libraries Transform already there. We've been going in cold for a while now. We show up in a community, there's not any of that prep work. I love Libraries Transform happening. I want you all to get involved in it in case you ever need to go to the ballot. I want you all to get involved in it because it gives you it's completely the right approach because this is a data point. Well, we want to put a gloss over it when we're talking about raising money from taxes, when we're raising money from donors, when we're raising support for going to city council. The gloss over it, again, who's spending that money? Where are the librarians in here? My other favorite one here, a crucial but somewhat unexpected finding, is that there's no difference between users and non-users, yes, but between Republicans and Democrats, between black, white, Asian, Hispanic, etc., between men and women, between household income or educational attainment. The factors that determine a resident's own willingness to increase their own taxes to support their library are their perceptions and attitudes about the library as an institution. And the librarians. We've got a great deck, folks. At your library, I love libraries. Libraries Transform, libraries. One noun, and yet the data that we've been sitting on since 2008 says it's co-equally about the librarians. If you can't say I do this, please start saying we do this. I've only been able to say, let me tell you about my librarians because I'm not one of them. I'm not one of y'all. Start talking about it like that. Okay, back to the problem. If voters, funders, advocates, supporters, if they're activated by their perceptions and attitudes, what is their current perception and attitude? I want to invite some of our colleagues up to talk about that a little bit more. What is their current perception and attitude? If they recognize the value of a passionate librarian as a key indicator of why they're voting yes for a measure, if they recognize the value of a passionate librarian for the key reason, as a key reason for why they are cutting you a check for $5, $50, or putting you in their will, if they understand that the value of a passionate librarian in the community that has never talked to them in the stacks about finding a book on grieving for their child because their own mother had just died, or help somebody start a business, help somebody write their first resume. They get it. But I want to invite some of my colleagues up here. I want to invite first, if I could, please, Rebecca Miller from LJ. I want to talk through about the accidental brand, because that passionate librarian, that the resident nostalgia, the asphasia that some people have that we're still around, there's a lot of experience that LJ has, and I really appreciate you being here. They do a lot of convenings of librarians. They speak to the public in a unique way as one of the sources of information. The profession in a unique way is one of the sources of information. I want Rebecca to share with us a little bit, if you could, about what your feelings are about the accidental and the intentional brand. Then I'll bring up Lindsay in a few moments.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm really pleased to be here, and I have one slide, because I want you to kind of study that and think about that as I frame out my comments. From my point of view, and just so you know, editorial director, Library Journal, School Library Journal, been in the field for about 19 years. Before that, used libraries in lots of ways, including being really afraid to go back to the Minneapolis Public Library for a while because of overdue fines. That was a long time ago. But from my point of view at LJ, I see a really scattershot effort at branding across the field. And I agree that generally all the branding is about libraries and not about librarians. And the biggest issue for me, from my perspective, is that the efforts aren't sustained and they aren't networked. So you have individual institutions or organizations like ALA, PLA, like you have all of these, organizations working on behalf of libraries and librarians. They're all worried about branding. They're all concerned about telling the story or making the case, but they aren't doing it in concert, even when they try, and they don't sustain it over time. And I think that you can look at lots and lots of examples, and a lot of them were mentioned here already, of that. And we could pour through those examples, but that's not the point. I really want to build forward in our thinking. I think that Libraries Transform may be an exception if it can manage to bridge beyond this president into the future. And one thing I like about that, and I've written about it, is that it's impact-based in terms of the messaging and not defensive in terms of the messaging. The brand point of view that generally is put forward in a lot of branding efforts and even in efforts when you go to ballot is defensive. And that is kind of the worst kind of branding effort that I think libraries or librarians can make about what the work is that happens in libraries. So, to say, vote for us because we're essential, kind of a not great message. It's true, and I absolutely agree, but it's kind of like, you need us, not really quite there. Vote for us because we're gonna die if you don't. Really bad, really not good. We can look at lots of examples of bad branding, but the best branding is impact-based or connection-based, or about really the beauty of the institution to drive us forward into a stronger sort of civic space. I think Libraries Transform has that potential to live that way as long as the messaging keeps being fresh and as long as there's adoption, really. I mean, really, it can just sit there and be something that was beautifully designed, but if people don't start to deploy it in their libraries, we won't even know whether it can work. And that is one of the biggest issues. Libraries were a great network. We're an absolutely exciting, vital network in this country, but we are unconnected as a network and way too silent as a network often. And you can read my editorials about that. I try to work against that a lot in what I write. So just briefly on the accidental brand of libraries and librarians, some of it's been touched on. I think sort of the darkest in unintentional or accidental branding is that librarians, and this is librarians, are intolerant, that they are people who are gatekeepers and rule-bound. And I think this is especially problematic if you expand who you're thinking of when you think about the librarian as brand to people who may not be especially well trained in customer service that are the touch point for the public or for the user. That's obviously something we've worked really hard in the profession to work against, but it is something that definitely sits out there as an issue. I think that the library as an accidental brand is, in some ways books. We didn't really mean that. We meant knowledge and information and smartness and where you can become the next thing you're going to be, where you're going to be that informed civilian that's going to vote for a great president. I won't say anything else on that from here. A place where you can really become something. And that, books doesn't really say that. Books is a format. It's a great format, excellent technology. We'll be here for a long time, love it. Read them frontwards and backwards, upside down, anything. And they signal a lot of those things, but as we well know in this era, they don't signal what our culture is doing and where they're at in terms of how they get information. Of course, the library itself is often perceived as a warehouse, as a storehouse, at best of knowledge, at worst of something that people can't actually get access to, or they can't actually get a copy because they're all out, or because the waiting line is too long. That real negative downside of how a lot of people have experienced the library maybe once and then never come back because that experience was so negative is something that libraries as a brand have to deal with. And I think it's something that we have to actively counteract. There's also, of course, that they're musty and old, but those are people who've never actually been in libraries, for a long time, or they went to a really good, really old library and didn't really appreciate it. I think there's also the idea that, and we've talked about it here, and I think it's really pervasive that libraries are outmoded by technology. People who use libraries don't feel that way. People who haven't set foot in a library for a really long time absolutely do not understand where libraries are at now, and that is really unfortunate. And I think the thing that we have to really think about when we're thinking about the branding message, and if we're going to work in concert to build out what it is the librarian is, that is something that we need to address. Real briefly on people and the librarians, John and I, we've talked about the librarian as the face to put forward in the community, and I agree with that. I think every staff person and every person who represents the library has to be super dynamic and real, and that person that's making that connection. I've written about trustees being that, and it's really important that trustees understand that their role is that they are basically, advocates in every place that they are, and they're not necessarily preaching, but they're definitely sitting there in that space wherever they are and saying, this is why the library can address this need. That, of course, is far from reality in terms of its actual application. I'm aspirational a lot about libraries. So just, as far as the people, I think that the downside for the accidental branding is bad things like that they're gatekeepers and they're rule bound and all that kind of stuff. The upside and things that we've seen in a lot of recent branding efforts, individual library by library and others, that they're cool, they're retro and hip, that they're technology savvy, that they're ready for you, that they're warm, that they're human, and that they're connected to your needs. And there are good examples of that, library by library, to think about and to lean on when we're thinking about how to represent the people that are in our libraries and the people who are making the difference. So I would say at LJ and SLJ, we think a lot about the people in the libraries and the people who are changing libraries. We have a lot of awards we give. You might have heard of movers and shakers. How many movers and shakers are in the room here? Great, thanks. I'm so glad you're here. We also do Librarian of the Year. That is a Librarian of the Year. Are there any Librarians of the Year in the room? This side. We also do an award that's called Para-Librarian of the Year. Any Para-Librarian of the Year is it here? No, harder for them to get to this conference. A Para-Librarian is basically what some people call paraprofessional, but we renamed it as Para-Librarian because we didn't want them to be perceived as not professional, but rather that they are professional and they're working alongside someone who has a degree instead of under and subservient to. And we've identified some great people that way. And so we've learned a lot from over the years about these kinds of the work that these people are doing, sort of what they bring forward. And some of the things that I think about that I think should be part of the branding of the future and the branding that I think people are working on is that librarians, these people who are really dynamic in our libraries, are strategic. They're ambitious for their communities. They're great partners. They will move organizations forward, and they'll move a city forward through their partnership. They're forward thinking and they're experimental. They're adventurous in their thinking, and they're flexible and dynamic. They're expert. That came up, and that I think is already understood. They're caring. And I think that something that we can really build on if we think about branding is that every paycheck in a library is great ROI. So, of course, we have to prove that, and data can show it and things like that. But really to say, if you're going to make the case for delivering against a dollar, you've got a library, you've got it. You have a good library. So I guess all of this is to say that you talked a little bit about advocacy earlier, and advocacy sort of being kind of coming into a negative space. And a couple of years ago, I started to think, I'm not going to do advocacy anymore. I'm doing stealth advocacy. Started building my thinking around my coverage around stealth advocacy, putting forward things that people could use in the field by taking it in front of someone else and making it a message to them that was something they could get excited about. So I think about how to reflect the connections to people that are happening in libraries. And I think a lot about impact and outcomes, and I know there's been a lot of work on that, and I think there's a lot more work to be done on that. The other thing that I think recently about, and I'm really surfacing more, is libraries and the ROI on salaries are part of this as key infrastructure. We saw in New York City, and Lauren's here so she can give a lot more detail than I probably can from here, the report from the Center for the Urban Futures, which did the study of the New York City branches across all 3 library systems and published several reports including branches of opportunity. The main thing that this outside organization did was looked at libraries with a blank slate. It wasn't librarians saying, we matter, we're really important, there are lots of us, use us. Instead, it was this outside entity that backed up, looked at everything and said, whoa, New York, you have all of this great infrastructure sitting here and you're abandoning it. You're neglecting it. Look at what happens in these libraries. Look at the people in these libraries. And if you don't fund it, if you don't step up and take care of it, you're basically squandering a resource and it's on your time. You will have done it. That was, in New York, I would say one of the single most important transitions in terms of the advocacy for those libraries, and it came from the outside through a neutral lens, and it was critical of how the libraries were as well. It wasn't, it was pretty fair, and it questioned that there were 3 libraries and all that kind of stuff. But the greatest thing that it did was it said, we have a network that isn't getting used. We're abandoning it, and if we do that, we will have wasted something that is not good to waste, and look at how we're squandering this. So, and New York has turned the corner, I think, in terms of library support and is beginning to put more money into that system. So I want to kind of end by looking at this cover of SLJ. This cover is an effort that our team made at Stealth Advocacy back in 2012. And I think that we were pretty intentional at this point about thinking about it as stealth advocacy. This cover story was the results of the 2012 of the tech study, the tech spending survey in schools. And the findings of that study, like past covers were like data oriented, but the findings of that study were things like that 87% of the librarians were in charge of technology in their libraries, that 60% had introduced technology in their classrooms, that 44% had informed technology at the top, at the building level and up into their districts. But that was like often hidden under like declining book budgets and the lost librarian. And I was like, we need to show that these individuals are moving into their communities and into their buildings. Now, in schools it's a little different because schools often are a solo librarian, so the librarian is this other force that I think in big institutions it's more problematic to represent one person or something going forward. So, I was like, okay, we got the Avengers, let's do the Avengers. And I love this illustration personally just because of it's art and it's beautiful and I love it. But it's now, it's 4 years old, 5 years old. And I just, as I came into this, and I'll be very interested in your feedback, and so maybe I'll stop and get your feedback before I tell you my feedback from today. What do you guys think of this cover? And you can be honest, I don't care, it's 5 years old. Yeah.
I guess I am a geek, but I always find it a little nerdy when libraries try to portray themselves as superheroes. Like, we're trying to be cool, but we're actually
Yeah. Yeah. You're going my direction. Yeah.
My suit's blue, that doesn't.
I know. Well, we did fight over that. That was you, So, yeah.
I actually find it a rather retro look at the superheroes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's retro. Yeah. Look, for SLJ, it's actually rather modern. But sorry. Sorry, Mark Tuckman, the art director.
It's nice to be superheroes and to portray ourselves as such, but on the cover of SLJ, we're the only people who see it. It doesn't get to the outside world.
Yeah, the goal of it, and which I wrote about in the magazine when I published it, was that this would be hopefully something that would be handed to the right person instead of kept in your library. So we had that in mind.
I kind of disagree. I have a different, our journals and magazines in our community college have seating in between, and they're easily seen through plastic acrylic. A cover like that for someone not even on our LTA program might be picked up by somebody who happens to be sitting right next to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As opposed to just text or
Sure.
icon.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think that should be the public, not us.
That's interesting.
The user should be the superhero.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, that's cool. So I'm interested in more feedback, and I don't want to eat up a lot more time. I just want to give my thoughts now from today in terms of branding are that this branding is the brand here. I think it basically has one fundamental problem in that clash with reality. It's aspirational. It's like, we want to say we're all superheroes, but we've been to library conference. We are librarians. We are people who are dealing with the everyday, and we know that a lot of us don't either look like that or act like that, really, ultimately. And the problem with a brand is that it's a promise. And if you're going to make a promise, you actually have to deliver on the promise, because every time you break a brand promise, you break trust. And so if that's your brand promise, and I'm not saying this should be the brand promise, I'm just using it as an example. If you do that, you have to actually have the underlying reality that supports, that the brand has to be a promise that you can keep. And I think that's one of the issues that I have with it. And I won't get into why we don't match those ideals, not that that's the ideal everybody wants anyway. I also think that one of the issues I have with it is that, a superhero is basically not a human being. It's a superhuman being. And really, libraries are about humans caring and engaging with one another and making change in their communities. And that's my other major piece of feedback on that. So that's all I have.
I'd like to invite up my colleague, Lindsay Sarin. Lindsay is, as I said earlier, our series editor for The Political Librarian. She was also on our board at the beginning of every library. I was interested in inviting her to find out a little bit about on campus, but really from the perspective of how do we train, how do we inculcate, how do we enculturate the next generation of librarians? What's the accidental stuff that happens in that process? Where's the intentionality?
Thanks, everybody. I'm starting to use my voice, or lose my voice, so I actually have to use the mic this time. So I'm Lindsay Sarin. I am the Director of Academic Programs at the University of Maryland's iSchool, but for 4 years before May 1st, I was the coordinator of the MLS program. And a couple of years, which is now the MLIS program as of about 6 days ago. So yay, finally we got the I. What I'm here to talk about is a project that we started 2 years ago called Re-envisioning the MLS. And so it was project. It's going to be 3 to 5 years long. I think it's really going to be 5 at this point, where we started asking some really, what we learned were very provocative questions about the training of future librarians, future archivists, people working in the field of information. So some of the questions that we asked were, what is the actual value of the MLIS degree? What's the value to the profession, to the institutions in which we work, to society and our communities? What is the value to decision makers? Do they care that we have a master's degree? And also to the students that we are serving. That's my community. We've heard a lot of people talking about the community we serve. That's who I'm here to serve. And we also asked, what does the future MLIS program look like? And also, is there a future for the MLIS degree? Which, let me tell you, when you ask a room full of librarians that, you get some really weird looks and a lot of people start yelling at you. So the process that we did, that we used, is we created an advisory board full of some of our constituents. We did a speaker series. Dave actually was our inaugural speaker at that. You can actually watch his talk. It was Burn the Libraries, Free the Librarians. Very provocative. It was wonderful. We did an internal speaker series. We did focus groups, engagement sessions. We did like 64 events in the course of a year. Let me tell you, I took a big long nap in June that year. Things that we learned from this, and the things that really came out of it, was that we aren't necessarily training folks to be intentional and to really act in the ways that we're talking about here. We're not necessarily doing as well as we could be on training them in political awareness, in advocating. I know that's sort of a dirty word in this room, and I actually got an earful from some programming librarians last night about how I can't use that word, and I need to use the word engagement. And I need to use the word outreach and engagement and not advocating. We also learned that we needed to be, and this is what's really relevant to this conversation, is we need to be very particular about the people that we recruit and we bring into the program. And so with that in mind, we actually created not a rubric, because that's way too structured, but a set of criteria and kind of inclinations that we really look for in the students who are coming in. And I will tell you, our admits are down this year. They're down by about a third. And that was because we were very, very intentional about the people that we're bringing into the program and the people who we think are going to do well, both in the program and then also in the profession overall. So these characteristics are, we need people who are very adaptable, so adapting to change in situations, people who don't just want to go and work in one building and talk to the librarians around them, people who want to go out, people who are very, very creative. I'm not even going to talk about budgets and blah, 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 blah. We all know that. People who are very flexible and willing to learn and to change and to address the communities in which they are serving, no matter who they are. People who have leadership potential. Not everybody needs to be a library director. Not everybody wants to be a library director. I think most leadership actually comes from the middle to low level. So how do you learn how to lead up? Obviously, you need to be a tech-savvy person. You have to be comfortable with technology. And also, we look for people who are marketers. So people who can stand up in front of rooms and actually talk about things. And people who can use evidence to support their cause and support their libraries. And of course, we're looking for people who are very service-oriented. This is a service profession. It's a community-oriented profession. You need to do that. Because we created this, for lack of a better word, rubric, again, our admit numbers are down, but I'm really, really excited about the group of people that are coming in this year, because I think it's going to begin a whole new shift in the dynamic of who we're training and who we're putting out and who really is going to be the future of the profession. Other things that came out of it, we're doing a complete curriculum redesign right now, and a lot of the things that are being discussed here, I know if we could get John as an adjunct, I would do it, but unfortunately I can't. He's got way too much going on.
Is that one?
No, there's a lot of reasons. Universities are very bureaucratic and very specific about who they let teach, which is sort of annoying a lot of the time. Obviously, my provost loves me. Anyways, so that's something that we're working on. We're doing curriculum redesign. We're bringing in, people who can come in and talk about what it is. What are the skills that you really need as a librarian? How do you make yourself politically aware? Maureen Sullivan, we're lucky enough to have, who teaches an advocacy class for us. So she teaches hands-on, like this is what you need to do. These are the communities you need to reach out to, and that sort of thing. So we're trying really, really hard to be at the forefront of, these are the kinds of librarians that we want to produce and that we want. And we don't want the people who are writing in their essay, and I say this to anybody who's applying, if you put I love books in your essay, I'm going to put it in the pile that I might read thoroughly, but probably not. Books are fantastic, it's lovely, but that's not what you're going to be doing all day. Tell me that you understand the profession. Tell me that you want to work with communities. Tell me that you understand that you're going to be talking to a huge variety of people. Tell me that you're comfortable talking and working with a huge variety of people. And also tell me that you really are going to go out there and be, engage with your profession and with others and talk to people coherently and effectively about what it is that you actually do every day. Somebody said earlier, my dad has no idea what I do for a living and all that. My mom asks me every year at Christmas, she's like, so what exactly? Like that is something that I want to make sure that our graduates can go out and say. They could give their 2-minute elevator pitch and say, this is what I actually do for a living. This is what I do to impact my community. These are the things that I do on a day-to-day basis that make the world a better place. I will also do a shameless plug. If you're interested in writing for the Political Librarian, please do come and talk to me. We are working really hard to make it a both research and practitioner publication. I think there are not nearly enough of those out there. Poor Rebecca heard me say this Saturday afternoon for about 45 minutes. We really want practitioners. We really want people who are interested in talking about engagement and community advocacy and politics and the things that we really have to do in order to make sure that we are as valued and as important, people see us as important as we actually are. So one last thing, there's a website up there, hackmls.umd.edu, that has every single speaking event, every recording, every lecture, everything that we did during that the first year of that project for data gathering. We have an initial report, and then we have our findings report. Everything is up there and transparent. If you have comments about it, you want to talk to me about it, send me an email, talk to me afterwards. We're still gathering information. We're still working through all of it. So any feedback is appreciated. So thank you.
What Lindsay just described is fundamentally what the Democratic Party and the Republican Party does when they're looking to recruit candidates. They want to identify folks who are at the local level right now in some farm league of a position. It might be a city council member, it might be a board of supervisors someplace. Who's going to run for the state house? Who's going to run for the Senate? Who's going to run for the House of Representatives? Who's going to be in our space because they've got it in their heart, their head, and their gut. They know how to behave. Well, to some extent, they know how to behave. They have to be groomed, though. It is brutal to be out on the campaign trail. It is brutal to put yourself out there, doing your stump speech again and again and again, of going out and knocking on doors. It's brutal work to have the door slammed in your face. You have to be able to not just know in your heart, your head, and your gut why you want to run, but you have to have an articulated set of, this is not a bad word in this case, talking points. You have to be able to articulate your vision for why you're running for, why you're standing for. I want to invite my colleagues, Erica Finley and Patrick Sweeney, up to take us through the next section. We're going to be moving a little fast on this next section. It's data, and then Patrick's going to do a deep dive with you at the tables. It's going to be a very exciting opportunity, I hope. So, it's all yours, Erica.
Good afternoon. My name is Erica Finley. I am on the board of every library. That is all volunteer work when I do it. I'm also a full-time librarian for Multnomah County Library, and that's the public library system that serves Portland and 2 other cities in Oregon. So I'm going to talk about a little bit more about articulating what we mean when we say librarian as a candidate. And then when I'm done speaking, you'll get to do something at your table. So that's coming. And we'll walk through what John was just talking about, and that's having those talking points and being able to articulate what you're doing, but more importantly, how it's impacting your community. All right, so some other data points that we've pulled out of research up here. And this was just to kind of illustrate that there are a lot of people that even though they may not use the library, they know the library is important for somebody else. So just to bring up that concept again, that not all library users are voters, and not all voters are library users, and there's no correlation between how often people use the library and whether or not they're going to vote to support you. But nonetheless, there are people that have a belief that the library is a transformative place. So who are these voters and what activates them? Well, there are certain things that they have to know about. You have to be able to tell them what's going to happen if this ballot measure passes, what are we going to be able to do with your money, but also what's going to happen if it doesn't pass. And I'm not saying you should develop that messaging of our library's going to have to close and everything's going to be horrible if this doesn't pass. But you do have to tell them with what both a vote yes and a vote no is going to mean. But you also have to be able to answer that question of who is spending their money. And that's the librarian. So people who support libraries, again, they may not be active patrons, they may not use the library at all, but they have a belief in a common set of values that need to be addressed in your conversations with them. So that also means that you, as we've been saying, I think for most of the day so far, that you need to get outside of your library and you need to be able to reach those people who either you do not yet have a relationship with or that for who that relationship might need some updating. So these people are involved in their communities. So all of the organizations in your communities, like the Rotary Club, the Lions groups, all those groups that also serve their communities, you want to be talking to them. These are people that recognize the library is important to their community because, and it may not be because of something that you do for them, but because of something you do for their children, for something you do for people in their neighborhood, for something you do for the constituents that they serve. They see the library as a vital community resource like public schools, fire, and police, and they're going to be willing to increase their taxes to support the library. And that because you are talking to them as a librarian, and again, I don't mean just the people who have the degrees. It's anybody who works in your library is a librarian. And I used to march drum and bugle corps. It's kind of like marching band for people who are no longer in school. And when we got out of uniform and we went to go sit in the stands and watch the other bands, we'd have these jackets with our group name on the back. And they always used to say to us before we left, if you're wearing that jacket, you represent our group. So even people like your volunteers or your trustees or your board, if they're out talking to somebody about what the library does, they're the library representative. And they can also talk about that passionate librarian and what that passionate librarian does to other people. So there are some practical activators that aren't all in your control during election time, like weather. But however, sending people door to door or getting your staff on the phones to connect with voters to tell the story is a start to letting people know about what the impact of your library is on the community, and will start to allow them to build that positive perception of the librarian. So it's not about the people that come in and having good interactions with them, but it's also about developing those points that you're going to take out and go door to door with. So again, bringing it back to that OCLC from awareness to funding study, it's the library as an institution, but also the librarian. So meeting anyone that works in your library represents the library. There needs to be that positive perception there. And it's that attitude and that relationship that's developed during that interaction that is what we're talking about today. So you, your staff, your board member, your trustees, they all need to be out there talking about how librarians can help families begin to face, begin to face crises, about how librarians help keep children's literacy skills when they're not in school. So it's not just about what you do and how you do it, but what the actual impact of that is on the people that you serve. So when we say librarian as a candidate, we mean you as that person out there talking to someone, you out there on the campaign trail. You've become the face for that issue that you're trying to get people to vote yes for. And you are the candidate that's running against your own library as the incumbent. So you are talking about how more funding or a new building will help make your library services better and more impactful. You'll be talking about what you're going to be able to do with this new money that you could not do before. So you are the candidate.
Can you go back to the slide of the 7 things that are factors? Because that was like speed quick and we were forgetting. Yay! Thank you.
Are these going to be available afterward?
Yeah.
Too? I would imagine they are. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We can go back to that one for a second. Oh yeah, give Eric a hand. Yeah, real quick, somebody made the comment, wow, weather's on there. That's absolutely true. When we see a snowstorm in November, voter turnout drops. Plain and simply, people who, the most motivated people to vote are the ones that are going to show up. You're going to get a different demographic than you had planned on getting. So weather is absolutely on there. If it's slightly uncomfortable, people don't show up to vote, you know. Does anybody have any questions about any of those? Can we move on? Okay. So you are the candidate. Thanks for running. So we're going to start doing some candidate training. Candidate training is one of the most important things that I think a librarian can do. If you don't know about candidate training, it is the process that a campaign consultant will take their candidate through. Most times, nobody clearly took Trump through these candidate training. However, usually they go through a really intensive candidate training process where they teach people to speak, they teach people to present themselves, they teach people to shake hands, kiss babies, all of that kind of typical political stuff. When to wear ties, when not to wear ties, how to present yourself. The very first thing that you do in a candidate training is really take an assessment of yourself and really think about why it is that you're running, what it is that you care about, what are your values, what are your ideals, what kinds of things do you want to bring to the campaign, what kinds of things do you want to communicate to the voters. And so in your papers, in your booklets, if you just open up the first page, there's a personal assessment for you guys to fill out. I'm going to give you guys just about 5 to 10 minutes to fill that out, somewhere in between there, because we're a little bit behind, but that's okay. 5 to 10 minutes. If you don't fill it all out here, take it home, fill it out at home. It'll be homework. Okay, folks, if you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. All right, we're all back. So, I was an elementary school librarian. You can take that trick with you. I use it a lot. So, the very first thing I want to do is, does anybody want to share their number 1? If we just get like 2 or 3 shares for number 1. Why is the library important to you personally? It's a personal question. Yeah, go ahead. Being around people and the community. Yes, yes. Access to equipment. Yes.
It gives me sort of a launching pad for making my community better.
A launching pad for making your community better. Those are all great. Absolutely, absolutely. We're going to keep moving because we're a little bit out of time. Otherwise, we'd go around the room a little bit more. Who wants to share what's your favorite reason to use the library? Free books. Free books.
To be around people like me.
To be around people like you. That's right.
To be around people not like me.
There you go. All right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Access to qualified information. All right. All right. So not like the internet. Yeah. Okay. All right. So question number 3. I walked around and I saw everybody write this down almost, and you're wrong. Okay. And this is the thing this is something that's really hard for candidates to face. This is a thing that candidates when they're working on their.
What did they write down?
Not yet. Not yet. Don't my punchline here. Come on. All right. So I saw almost everybody write this down. And this is something that candidates have something that they need to do some soul searching around. They need to figure out what it is that they believe in and who it is that they want to direct their messages to. I saw a lot of you guys write down everyone. Okay. There's a lot of people who wrote down everyone. Now that's really nice, and that's great. But not everybody holds the same values, and that's okay. And we have to be okay with that. If you are everything to everybody, you are nobody to anyone, really, okay? Like, there's absolutely no way to do it. We just have to face the fact that there's absolutely no way to serve everyone in the community, and that's okay. But we need to be there for the people who need us. We need to be able to communicate with the people who don't use us that we're important. That's all okay, but they don't have to use us. We'd love for them to support us if I'm a candidate. I want 100% of the voters to vote for me. That's not going to happen. It doesn't matter if I have the cure for cancer or I'm a brain surgeon, Ben Carson, right? Not everybody's going to vote for you. That's just never going to happen, unfortunately, all right? Okay, so who does the library serve? We're going to move on past all these because I don't think we have time to go through them all, right? Who's going to be uncomfortable with your initiative? Think about this one. Who's going to be uncomfortable with asking for tax money? Who's going to be uncomfortable with it? Can you guys visualize somebody in your community, a group in your community that's going to be uncomfortable with it? It could be that guy that shows up to every city council meeting. It's always a dude, a white dude who shows up to your city council meeting and talks about government taxes and whatever, building a wall and all that kind of stuff, right? Everybody has that guy in their head. There's also a couple of groups. Sometimes there's a Tea Party group. Sometimes you have a Tea Party group on your side of libraries. That happens. We've seen that happen in a couple of campaigns. The Tea Party actually supports the library. We've seen that. Yeah, okay. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about surfacing the candidate. Now, surfacing is a phase of a campaign that happens before the campaign actually starts. Surfacing a campaign right now, if you are all candidates, and you aren't running for a bond or referendum, millage, whatever, if you aren't running one for the next 10 years, right now you are surfacing your campaign. You are in campaign mode. The mode of this the phase of the campaign that you're in is called surfacing. This started really in like the 70s, and 2 years before the elections, everybody was showing up in Ohio and starting to get on the campaign trail to talk about their beliefs, introducing themselves to the community, talking about their values, talking about why they should be voted for, years and years before a campaign starts. And you see this a lot. So you are absolutely the candidate. Like I said, candidate training, we'll talk you through this quite a bit. If you have an opportunity, this is another homework assignment. Google candidate training. Democracy for America does a really, really good candidate training. I haven't seen a lot scheduled recently, but take a look. They have them up. They're like $75. It's a whole weekend. It's great for you. All right, so there's a guiding principle to being a candidate, right? And the very first guiding principle as librarians, and every candidate believes this about themselves, but the guiding principle is Dread Pirate Roberts. How many of you know the story of the Princess Bride? All right, quite a few of you. How many of you know the story of Dread Pirate Roberts specifically in The Princess Bride? How many of you guys remember that? All right. For those of you that don't remember it, I'm going to give you a little refresher course. Wesley was captured by the pirates 5 years earlier, and he shows up and he's trying to save. Now I forgot her name. Buttercup. Thank you. And he's trying to save Buttercup. I don't need to tell the story. You guys can tell it. She asks him, "How are you the Dread Pirate Roberts? If the Dread Pirate Roberts has been rotting for 15 years and you've only been lost for 5." And this is the guiding principle. It's because the Dread Pirate Roberts transferred all of his power to Wesley. He gave Wesley his Dread Pirate Roberts costume, started dressing him as Dread Pirate Roberts, gave him all of his panache, gave him all of his relevance, or lended all of his credibility. Thank you, that's the word I'm looking. Lended all of his credibility to Wesley, who then became Dread Pirate Roberts, right? Now, all of us in this room, we are experts in libraries. When we show up, we have the library behind us. We have the library costume, I guess. You know, we have the business card. And the business card is one of the most amazing things to ever happen in modern society because you can get in anywhere with the right business card. You know, if you want to start a business, you just put that name on your business card, your qualifications on the business card. People will just believe you. It's amazing. That's why I'm up here today. So No, really, it's really amazing. So when you go into a meeting, when we're talking to librarians about talking to the public, talking to the mayor, talking to the city council, showing up at PTA, board meetings, going on that listening tour that they need to do, that every candidate needs to do during a surfacing phase, they get really nervous about showing up to those meetings. And they don't need to be, because they have that library behind them. That library gives them the validation, gives them the credential. Even if they don't have a master's degree, there's nobody else in that community, or at least in that room, who knows as much about that library as you do, right? You are the expert. There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be setting up meetings with your mayors, your PTA, your city councils, whoever you're trying to talk to, and speaking to them directly, honestly, compassionately, passionately about the library, because you have that credential, you have that knowledge, and nobody else in that room does, right? Okay, that's my speech for you guys. The second most important rule is the Haycock rule. How many of you know Ken Haycock, right? He is the Dean of Information School at UC Santa Clara. USC, thank you. When we started this about 4 years ago now, even before we actually started, we sat down with Ken Haycock at a California Library Association conference, and he absolutely blew our mind with this rule that he gave us, which is why we call it the Haycock rule. I just don't have another name for it, quite honestly. But the idea is, why is it that people help you, right? Why is it that people will lend you a hand, even if we just break it down to, why is somebody going to help you move, right? You need to move houses, and you invite your buddy over because he has a truck or whatever. But why is he going to do that? Free beer, free pizza, right? So you've heard me do this talk before, but a lot of people think that your buddy comes and helps you because he likes you, right? He's your buddy, he likes you, he's your friend, he's going to help you move, okay? What's interesting is the data actually shows that he's not helping you because he likes you. He's helping you move because he perceives that you like him, right? He perceives that you like him. People don't do things for you because they like you. They do things for you because they perceive that you like them, right? Which is an interesting concept, because, and it was a hard lesson for me to learn, because when I walked into meetings, and the guy sitting across from me was just somebody hate, like I just didn't like that guy. It was the worst meeting I ever had. I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't get the things that I needed. The meeting went badly. He clearly didn't like me either. When I flipped that around, I walked into every meeting like this was my best friend. Like we go fishing on the weekends. Like we know each other. Everything changed for me. That's when my meetings started to get successful. And it wasn't a change. They didn't change at all. It was still the same guy that I didn't like, right? But because I changed my perception about them, that meeting drastically changed. And that's super important. Now, all of the responsibility is on us. That puts all the responsibility on us as librarians. Now, that means being compassionate to your patrons, right, at the reference desk. Even that guy who asked you for the bathroom the 300th time, or, asked you, whatever they ask you at the reference desk. All of that is on you to build that relationship up by your behavior. It's not on them. They will like you because of your behavior and your belief about them. Okay. So how candidates surface? So number one, the most important thing is starting early. The earlier you start surfacing, the earlier you start building up this phase of your campaign, the cheaper your campaign is going to be when it comes time to run. You're not going to have to spend as much time, energy, or money, number one, identifying supporters, or number two, convincing them to support you, because you've already done all that work, right? You've already talked about why the library is important. You've already talked about the things that you care about, that the library values, that the library brings to your community. You've already reinforced that for years. You've done all of that work for years. That is now something that your community believes because they've heard it enough from you. They've heard it enough in your marketing. They've heard it enough in your advertising. They believe that already. So you don't need to start convincing them why it is that you need a library, because we all have Google. You don't need to have that argument with them. You've already addressed that for years, right? Writing the book. Now here's a fascinating thing. This is the part that all of us librarians can relate to as part of the surfacing phase. All these books start coming out about 2 years before every presidential election. Ben Carson, Trump, Rick Perry, Barack Obama, somehow Sarah Palin. All these people wrote a book. They all wrote a book, okay? And that book is their opportunity to introduce themselves to your community. It's their opportunity to introduce themselves without any opposition. That's the beauty of surfacing, is that you don't have any opposition because there's nothing for anybody to oppose yet. You're not asking them for money. You're not asking them for time, service, whatever. You're not asking them for anything. You are there unopposed to talk honestly and directly to the people about why what you're doing is important, okay? And that's what that book is. It's just a tick on the checklist for running for office for a candidate. And we have those opportunities. I'm going to get to that too in a second. They tell their story through that book. Be seen as an expert, and we'll get to that. Start an exploratory team, get endorsed, and then launch their campaign. So what is your book? For us, for librarians, we have our strategic plan. How many people, a lot of libraries kind of do this in an interesting way. I won't say you're wrong, but you're wrong. We don't tell our story through like our annual reports and stuff, right? We tell how many books got checked out, 300,000 books got checked out last year, or 3 million people walked through our doors, or those kinds of things. But those aren't resonant messages. Those aren't things that people care about, honestly. Nobody cares that 300 people walked through the door, okay? I'm going to get to that too in a second. Your management plan, your fundraising goals, being open and transparent. Part of that book is kind of opening up that curtain behind the person as a candidate, right? So all of your fundraising goals, all your financials, everything that your library's budget is based on, all of your programs, services, and collections should be held open, and they should be part of your open and transparent conversation with the public. Yes,
Just a quick comment that the other thing is that please stop writing strategic plans where all this magically happens, because no people were involved with it. The building has somehow miraculously offered these things. It took people to make this happen, highlighting the fact that there are professionals and staff, and part of the investment that the community is making is from people. Again, we're here to talk about not just how to advocate for the library, but to serve as an advocate for the librarian. So.
Right. No, you're good. You're good. David, you're never wrong. Okay. All right. Thanks for having me. All right. So, tell your story. Be the expert. One of my favorite things about Rick Perry are his glasses. No, honestly, because he never puts them on unless he wants to look like he's an expert in something, right? When he shows up to talk about his expertise on, the global economy, he puts those glasses on, right? This happens quite a bit in the surfacing phase of a campaign. There was it David Dukakis who showed up on the tank? Was Michael Dukakis. Michael Dukakis showed up on I was like 6, I don't know. So showed up on a tank, and the Reagan campaign took him to task for it, right? And that was part of the thing that tanked his campaign. When President Bush, who never was really from Texas, but he showed up in Texas wearing the Texas gear and chopping wood and all that kind of stuff, that was all about him telling his story about himself, introducing himself to the public in the way that he wanted to introduce himself to the public. These are very contrived. These are very staged things. When Paul Ryan showed up to clean the dishes at the food pantry, but it turned out it was already closed and nobody was there, and the dishes had already been done and all that kind of stuff, right? Now the problem is telling that in an open and transparent way, but an honest way, of course, right? And that was kind of the piece that he missed. Being honest with your public, being honest with what you're doing when you're telling your story about what it is that you're doing. Start talking about your plans. What is it that you're going to do with the money? If you had more money, what is it that your library could do? When you're going out to talk to PTA, you can say, we're doing all this amazing stuff, but if I just had like a couple more dollars, we could also do this, right? When you go out and you talk to the Rotary Club about business stuff, the Chamber of Commerce about business stuff, if only I had a couple more dollars, we could do this, but this is all the amazing stuff that we're doing, but if I had just a little bit more, I could do this. If I had a little bit more resources, if I had some more people, if I had some more money. Those are frameworks that you can start setting up years beforehand, so that when it actually does come time to run and ask for more money, they'll say, oh yeah, totally, didn't you need more money to do more stuff for businesses? Absolutely I did. Vote for me, right? Okay. Drink more coffee. That doesn't mean like your staff. A well-caffeinated staff is amazing though. Legal drugs, I'm all about them for your staff, make them more motivated. But drink more coffee, have more meetings with people. It's okay to call your mayor and say, hey, can we get a coffee and we can talk about what your plans are for the city and how the things that my library does dovetail with your plans for the city. That's okay. That's okay. They really want you to reach out to them. They really want to know that you're on their side. They really want to know that you are their friend, right? That you like them. You can do that with people who run the Elks Club. If you start your relationships early with the Tea Party, you show up with your budget binder and you open it up and you show it to them. A lot of times we've seen that work in campaigns before. Kent Library District showed up early, opened up the budgets for the Tea Party, and the Tea Party didn't say a word about it. They're like, great, thank you. We just wanted you to be open and transparent about it. That was it. It was great. Ask people to join you. You can start building your coalition early. One of my favorite things that we did in Sunnyvale was we started a relationship with the gardening community because 5 years earlier, the gardening community opposed the brand new library because it cast a shadow on their garden, right? And they drummed up a bunch of opposition, and there was no relationship between the garden and the library. When I got there, we were talking about running an initiative in the next couple of years. My librarians reached out, started a seed library in partnership with them. We started doing story times in the garden. We started talking to them about, like, if we built a new library, what would you guys want to see in it? We built those kinds of relationships up early, so the library and the garden community were a partnered organization in developing a new library that's good for the community, good for the garden. You know, so you have these opportunities to build these coalitions early when you don't have any opposition, and that's the best time to do it. Spending money to get likes, please, for God's sake, spend money on Facebook ads. It's the cheapest, easiest thing you can do. I'm going to talk about that more. Sign up folks for your email list. Honestly, email is one of the strongest things that you can do digitally to get people on your side. I'm going to talk about that more later too, and continually educate your stakeholders. We've already talked about that. Getting involved, build your campaign team. Like I said, involve those communities. I gave you the story of the garden community. Get to them early, talk to them early. Talk about the importance of the library to child's education. Seeing the library as a noble place. Library is a vital community resource to be supported. And talk about your value as a passionate librarian, somebody who's passionate about the community, somebody who's passionate about the services that are in the community. If you just had like a couple more dollars, you could really do a lot more, right? Okay. So getting endorsed. Getting endorsements early on is going to set you up a lot later. They're not going to be able to come out against you later if you have the city councilman on your side, if you have the mayor on your side, if you have the Tea Party mayor on your side early on. Getting those endorsements. Elections are won a lot through coalitions. They're won often through groups of really powerful people in the community, people who are seen as leaders in the community. I vote for the library because I believe in what that guy believes in, and that guy believes in the library, so I'm going to vote for it, right? And getting those people early. Now, one of the interesting things in like Santa Cruz, when I grew up in Santa Cruz, I'll get to you in a second. When I started my library career in Santa Cruz, if you're familiar with Santa Cruz, California, it's a beautiful place. Seabright, there was a woman, an older woman who sat on her porch all day long. I don't know what she did, but nothing in that community could get done without it going over her front porch. When I would hang out in my neighborhood and I'd see the city councilman walk up, sit down on her porch and talk to her for a while, if they got her endorsement, it was fine in Santa Cruz. If it didn't get her endorsement, it wouldn't fly, and they wouldn't even try. I don't know who she was or what she did, quite honestly. There are a lot of like myths about her. But find those people, because there are those people in your community. If you have that one government watchdog, reach out to them early, invite them to the table early. That guy who always shows up to your city council meetings, he can show up to those city council meetings and speak in favor of your library instead of against it. If you get to them early, these people want to be included. They're looking for some way to show their importance in the community. They're showing some way to validate their otherwise meaningless existence, usually, you know. And you have that opportunity to bring it to them. Don't tweet me on that. And so proxies who speak for the candidate. So that's what I'm talking about. Get those proxies early. Turn that guy who's like the rager at the city council meetings to just love your library. Get to him early. All right. And we always got it because we asked. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask. Okay. All right. So we're gonna start doing an exercise in your papers. It is called power mapping. This comes right out of just about every candidate training ever. It's out of like Saul Alinsky's Rule for Radicals. It's out of Democracy for America. The Tea Party uses this. Everybody uses this thing. I'm sorry, Rivka, I totally forgot to come back to you.
Oh, that's okay. I just really wanted to reaffirm, we just did a parcel tax measure. I met with all of the groups that I thought might actually be opposed to it or come out against it. I started those meetings in September. I actually went back, I found an email from last July. Our election was June 7th. So early.
A year in advance.
A year in advance is not too soon.
Yeah.
To start building
5 years.
your coalition. I mean, yeah, and I'm sure if you've got a bigger thing, ours was pretty simple. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
And to your point, to bring up the election win, the biggest aspect of all of this data we've been sharing, the reason that you're a candidate might not be to go out for a ballot measure like Rivka did. It might be to go out with the thermometer on the front lawn to fill up the thermometer with donations. Okay? It's the same characteristics. So as Sweeney gets into this now with you on power mapping, I am agnostic about what money you need and how you're going to get it, either through the ballot, through city council, county government, town board of selectmen, through the donation campaign. This is germane to all y'all here in the room, okay? So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, absolutely. How many of you guys know Ed Garcia? What, Garcia? Yeah. Oh, I've been saying it on that whole time? All right, whatever. One of my favorite things about following him on Facebook is he's always on Facebook carrying that big check. Have you guys seen how many giant checks this guy gets? Follow him on Facebook. He is the director of Providence, Rhode Island. Paul, whatever. Okay. Paul Tucka? I don't even know where that is. All right. Anyway, follow him on Facebook. See all of his big checks. He goes out to these communities. Awards beget awards. Get your library some awards. Don't be afraid to ask for grants and get that kind of stuff. All right. Power mapping your community. Let's move on before I butcher that anymore. Power mapping your community. All right. So the very first page that we're going to see is this one right here. Okay. And it's just a big list. And this is just our brainstorming session. Now, power mapping, how many of you have played 6 Degrees of Separation from Kevin Bacon, right? This is basically that game. And what you're going to try and do is you're going to try and find a roadmap to some of your most influential groups in your community, some of the most influential people, some of the most influential companies in your community through your library. Now, you might not get it all done in here. If you're working with people, if you have people around you who are from your same library, that's great, work together. Usually when we do this in a campaign, we do this for almost every single one of our campaigns, the librarians are working in groups of 3 to 5. If you guys want to work in groups of 3 to 5, I'm totally comfortable with that too. If you are all working from different libraries, think of things like Rotary Club or Chamber of Commerce, or those kinds of bigger things that almost every community has too, okay? Now, the key here is trying to figure out a way to get to that person, to influence them, to just get your foot in the door so you can have that coffee, so you can get that meeting, so you can introduce yourself to them. Or it's the person who's on the Knight Foundation, right? Your friend is a friend of the guy who's making decisions about Knight Foundation grants, which I didn't get, by the way. So I'm not bitter. My girlfriend got it. She got like $350,000. I got nothing. So. All right, so this decision-making process. Now, one of the great stories of success about this in Kentucky, there was a mayor who was against a library initiative, and he was trying to defund the library out of the general fund. One of the librarians showed up to one of the barbecues that was going on in Kentucky, sat down and had a barbecue with the wife of the mayor, and talk to the mayor about why the library is important to children, why it's important for single mothers, why it's important for any kind of mothers, and got to him through that. The mayor never said a word again. That his wife went home and gave him an earful about this, right? And why it's so important in the community. He never said anything again. And that's what we're mapping to right now, okay? So when we start, we're just gonna do quick brainstorming. If you don't get through 30, that's okay. I'm gonna give you guys like 5-ish minutes to brainstorm as many community organizations, as many people in your community that you think are important. If Tom Green lives in your neighborhood, that's fine too. Like all those kinds of influential, moneyed, wealthy people. All right, so go ahead. All right, so here we go. We're gonna move on. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. All right. So, turn the page. Now here's what we're going to do. We're going to choose, and we're just going to start with one for right now. I gave you 3 pages. When you guys get home, you can do 2 more from some community groups in your own neighborhoods. But for right now, we're going to do this one right here, just the first one. Pick one of those groups. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take a couple of minutes. You're going to try, when you pick that group, you're going to try and brainstorm some connections to that group. You can work forwards to it, or you can work backwards from it, right? Does somebody on your board of trustees, do you think knows somebody? Do they serve in this community? Now, if you want to even do it all the way backwards, where you can think of, you can work your way from your board of trustees into an organization, you can do it that way too, okay? I just use board of trustees. It doesn't have to be your board of trustees, whatever you guys want, okay? Okay, team, let's start going on to the second question there, which is write a few short sentences. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. All right. So we're going to go on to the second question, which is write a few short sentences about what you know that they believe in. The person that you are trying to connect with, or the group that you are trying to connect with, what are some values that they hold? What are some things that they believe in? If it's the mayor, what kind of platform did they run on? Was it a public safety platform? Was it an education platform? Brainstorm those kinds of things and think about that person, what they valued. All right? Okay. Oh, yeah, and if you can't think of things, use Google, use your phone if they had a campaign platform, whatever. You guys are librarians, you can find it. Okay, so you guys should have had a couple of things in there. If you don't finish this today, that's okay. You're going to take it home. It's all right. It's okay. All right, so if you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. All right. So here we go. The next part we're going to start talking about now, the next section that we're going to get into with writing the message and the 2793 stuff, this is something that we do in like a 4-hour training, and I'm going to try and do it in like 5 minutes. Okay? All right. This is really a big key component of what a library does. I'm going to let you guys look up some of this stuff and work from it at home. Yeah, just use Google, right? Yeah, I heard that. All right. So the very first thing, Barack Obama change, right? Now here's the thing though. Change wasn't his message. Change was his theme. And there's a very big difference between a campaign theme and a campaign message. Everything that you're saying and doing relates back to what your campaign theme is, but all those messages are messages to your theme. So how many of you can tell me what your library's vision statement is, or your library's mission statement is? A handful of you, right? Now usually that's not far off from how many we get even when we do it with one library that we're working with, right? When we get all 30, 40 librarians in a room and we ask them what their vision statement is, and they all look at us like deer in headlights, right? That happens all the time. That's okay. Some of us have really, really bad vision statements, so it's okay if you don't use it, right? We went and did a library campaign, and the director read us their vision statement, and it was like a dissertation. It was like 5 pages long. It was ridiculous, you know. It wasn't 5 pages. It was like 10 sentences. That's still way too many. A good vision statement. It should be a good theme. In San Mateo County, we had Connect, Discover, Evolve. That was our theme. That was our vision statement, and everything we did connected right back to it. Even down to our staff evaluations. How do we connect? How do we discover? How do we evolve? How do we help patrons do that? Everything that we did built right back into that, right? Okay. So your change now, if we have good vision statements, we should all be sick of them. We should all be tired of hearing them. You can bet that Barack Obama was tired of the word change by the end of that campaign, but you can bet that there were people who hadn't heard it enough, okay? There are people who, just because you're tired of it doesn't mean that your community is. Keep saying what your vision statement is. Keep putting it out there. Keep getting that theme out there. Keep getting that vision out into your community about what it is that you believe in, as much as you possibly can. So you have your theme and you have your message. Now, when Barack Obama went to Iowa, he talked about change in a way that related to things that were important in Iowa, right? Corn or whatever is important in Iowa. And he talked about change when he went to Detroit, and he talked about manufacturing, the car industry. When we went to Iowa, he talked about big ag or those kinds of things, right? But it was still about change. In the end, he customized his message to whoever he was talking to so that it related back to his theme. And we see this quite a bit in library campaigns that we're working with. When they show up to the Rotary Club, I keep saying Rotary Club, when they show up to the Chamber of Commerce, they start talking about how the library educates children and kids come to story times and how important that is to the Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber of Commerce, they don't care. That's not what they're about, right? You're talking about cars in Iowa, and that's really the problem. When you talk to the Chamber of Commerce, you should be talking about business, economic development. How do you help entrepreneurs? How do you help inventors? How do you help the economy of the local community, right? That's what Chamber of Commerce cares about. When you go to PTA, talk about how you support lifelong learning. Talk about how you support literacy. Talk about how you support the things that the teachers are teaching in their classrooms, right? Your message is the same, or your theme is the same, but your messages lead to it in a way that's resonant with the people that you're talking to, and that's really, really important. Which is why the second part of this was write a few short sentences about what you know that they believe in, because you have to understand that to be able to give them a message that's meaningful to them. And I'm going to go on a quick rant about data. We have a big problem in this industry in that we don't know who it is that supports libraries or why it is that support from libraries. That awareness to funding study showed us that Democrat or Republican, you're equally as likely to vote for the library. User, non-user, you're equally as likely to vote for the library. So basically we will learn like people vote for libraries sometimes, right? That's exactly what we learned. And what we need to know is who votes for libraries and why. If I was a candidate on a Republican ticket, I'd call the candidates on the voter file. Or I'd call the Republicans on the voter file, right? If I was a Democrat, I'd call the Democrats on the voter file. And that's how campaigns are done. I'd go door to door for people who I know give to Democrats if I was a Democrat. But libraries, when we run a campaign, we have to call everybody on that voter file because we don't know which one of them support libraries and which one of them don't. It's hugely costly, it's hugely inefficient, and we really need to do some big data diving. We're working with Gale to do it through their consumer data analytics on demand platform when we're working with campaigns. But that's something that we need to look at so that when we show up to Iowa, we know that they care about agriculture. When we show up to Detroit, we know that they care about manufacturing in the car industry, right? We just don't know that right now. So that's just something to scare you a little bit, okay? Because Americans for Prosperity, the Koch brothers, they know exactly what you care about and why you care about and how to talk to you about it. The NRA, they know who cares about guns, they know how to talk to them and what's going to motivate them to take action on behalf of guns. They know that. Focus groups, research, we don't have it, we haven't done it, we have to do it. And we're trying to do it. Okay. If anybody has a link to like $2.5 million, we'll take it, we'll do the research. Okay. So we are going to write a message that's specific to each of these organizations using the 2793 model. So we're going to break this down a little bit. We're going to start with a message box to get to that 2793 model. This isn't on your paper, but this is just something that you guys can Google and look at home. We usually do a big exercise around this message box. We're not going to do that today just because we don't have time. But a message box is an interesting tool right out of the candidate training. What we're saying about ourselves is one, and you fill out all the things that you say and believe about ourselves. What do we say about librarians? If some people want to shout out a couple of things, what are things that we believe about ourselves as libraries? What are things we believe about ourselves and librarians as librarians? Make a difference. Yeah. We're bringing community together, right? We're educating children. We're educating adults. We're providing important services, economic development to the community, connecting people to the resources they need, right? Those kinds of things. Does anybody have any other ones? We welcome everybody. Well, yeah, we welcome everybody. Sure. Yeah, we do. We do welcome everybody. Except for that guy, that one guy. If we could get him out of the library. All right. So we're going to move on to what do they say about themselves? And what you can think about in this case is your opposition. Think about what it is that people are saying about libraries that's talking to people about not voting for libraries. We don't need libraries. We have Google, right? If you're thinking about that guy who shows up to every city council meeting to talk about why we shouldn't vote for more taxes, he has a belief about himself, right? And we need to understand those beliefs that we have about ourselves. Catherine came up and talked to me about, we all walk across the same coals together, and we can all help out each other. How did that analogy go?
Well, when you're working with people that you disagree with, if you can stick with it and walk through the fire together, you come out stronger, both of you on the other side, even though you might still disagree about some things. So walking through the fire together can be a very empowering thing for the whole community and for whoever it is on both sides of things. And I think it can result in a different dialogue altogether.
Yeah. And that starts with understanding who they are and what it is that they believe about themselves, right? And one of the things that you see a lot of times, those people who disagree with the city council, if the city council says that the sky is blue, they're going to argue with you about sunsets, right? It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what happens. But they have a belief about themselves, and they're doing that a lot of times because they believe that they are the government watchdog. They're the truth and the light and the way, standing between a corrupt and overly bureaucratic government and the good citizens of this country, right? They have that belief about themselves. And if you can get them to be that for you, it starts right here. So, you put things in here like government watchdog or the protector or savior or all those kinds of things that they say about themselves, those values that they hold about themselves in there. What they're saying about us. Now you can start, this is where you start talking about some of the negative things that they're saying about you, right? Your government employees, your pensions are too high, we have Google, we don't need libraries, all that kind of stuff. That's where we start filling that kind of stuff. Then this last one, we try not to use it too often, that top right corner, what we are saying about them. We try not to use that too much. That's that negative box, right? That's where we start going negative on a campaign. We've only had to do that one time, and that was in Lafourche, Louisiana, when the mayor came out and spoke out against the library. He's trying to defund the library to fund a prison. And he said a week before the campaign that the only people who go to the libraries anyway are a bunch of racist epithets for everybody who use the library, right? It's only those people, okay? We put together a campaign in 2 days. We raised about $5,000. We put it out all over Lafourche Parish, Louisiana, all over social media that he had said all these horrible things and tanked his campaign in 2 days. It went from Tuesday, the vote was on Saturday, and it was over by a landslide, completely lost. And we only go to that in those kinds of extreme cases, but that's an interesting area to have filled out just in case, right? Just in case you need to. Okay. So here's the format of how we're going to develop a 2793 message. A 2793 message is 27 words in 9 seconds and 3 points. It's put together like this for a very important reason, and that is because number one, it's tweetable. Okay, I mean that's not really number one, but 27 words, 9 seconds, 3 messages. People really start to lose track after 3 messages, after 3 examples of something. If you say, libraries are great because we provide services to children. We help seniors with iPads. You can use computers. You can check out books. You can check out nonfiction books. You can check out fiction books. You can check out mystery books. You can, and we see a lot of libraries do that. But we want one message that we want to that we want people to take away from our interactions with them. So when we're going to talk to this group, when we're going to talk to these people, we want one message that resonates with that group. That's 27 words. And 27 words is almost always deliverable in 9 seconds. And we have 3 key points or 3 examples that we're going to attach to it, right? So it's something like, if you want somebody to understand why we need libraries when we have Google, you can say something like, you're right, we have Google, and we also provide services. We also provide a community space, and we provide services to the children, and so you have that 3 examples. Okay, this is also really important because 27 words is about the quotable max that newspapers use, that reporters use, right? They usually, the average is about 27 words. And if you want a reporter to walk away with something that they can use, one soundbite, have that soundbite ready, use it often throughout your campaign, okay? All right, does anybody have any questions about that? I know we're going kind of fast over this stuff, so. All right, yes. Yeah, a good example. No, I can't count the words that I'm saying that fast. Let me see. I'll look at some of the examples that I have that I've sent to other campaigns, and I'll tell you, but I don't have it right now. But does anybody have any that they want to try? Not yet. Let's try and develop some for the communities that we're trying to talk to. Okay. So that third question, 2793 for the community that you're trying to address. Does everybody understand? Okay. All right. Okay, so asking for an example, I was trying to bring some of ours up. An example, the library builds a stronger community, or a stronger economy in our community through resources that help entrepreneurs grow their business, facilitating job training skills, and by anchoring neighborhood retail areas. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, thanks, John. Sure.
Okay, does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Yeah, please.
I kind of cheated because I have a standard already, but I.
That's great, that's perfect.
Mine is only a fraction of the world's information is available on Google. Librarians can help access anything from anywhere in the world. They're human info experts.
There you go. That's a good one. That's a good one. Anybody else? Yes.
I've got one aimed at a cultural music festival.
Okay, one aimed at a music festival.
The library provides access to cultural programs, materials, and education for all ages and incomes, including media, instruments, and direction.
There you go. Great. Yeah. Great. Any others? One more? Go ahead.
This is to our Chamber of Commerce. The Grand Forks Public Library supports area businesses by providing resources to help create a business plan, offering online access to training, and enabling potential employees to apply for jobs online.
There you go. That's a good one.
There you go. Right, right. And that's speaking directly to those people about what it is that they care about and something that they can easily understand. Very good. All right, so we're not going to do the last two here, but I want to talk about them before I send you home. These are things that you guys can do with your librarians at home to try and build out from here. Now, when you get home, you're going to want to write a few short sentences about how the library can intersect with the beliefs of that group. Now, this is your in, right? This is your foot in the door. How can your library connect with them? This can be your excuse or your reason to go have coffee with somebody from the mayor's office or from somebody from a local business or organization. We have the example in Oakland. We are working with the board of trustees there and talking about ways that they can build up some of these partnerships with the organizations in their community. One of the big organizations in Oakland is Clorox Bleach, right? And we had a big conversation with the librarians about how can you connect to Clorox Bleach. And it really doesn't seem like there's a way, but all of these large organizations have community outreach managers, right? They all have community partners. There are actually really cool science experiments that you can do with bleach. Clorox is going to want to come out and they're going to want to talk about these cool things that you can do with bleach, cleaning with bleach. If you've ever done like reverse tie-dye with bleach, there's a lot of different stuff that you can do, plus all the safety aspects that they want to talk about with their product. And you can have the kids come in and learn about this stuff in a really important and interesting way that also teaches them the safety of the product. And so that was their into that community. They thought about like, what kind of programs can we do with Clorox, right? What kind of programs can we do with them? And they reached out to them to see what they could do. And there's a lot of different organizations that you can do kind of the same thing with. If there's big businesses, if Public Works in your community, like how much do kids love tractors? Public Works have a lot of those big bulldozers and tools and stuff, and you can have Public Works come out and demonstrate those, and the kids can climb over the big wheels and all that kind of stuff. Same thing with like the police story time or the fireman story time. The mayor's coming to read a book in the library. That's a great in. There's nothing that politicians love more than a picture with kids or dogs. So you can give them those opportunities, right, in your library, and you can reach out to them. And when you're reaching out to them, the purpose of that is to deliver that 2793 message so that they understand that, for them to walk away and believing that core 2793. That makes sense. This is why the library is so important. I'm so glad I went and did that thing with the library, right? Did you have a question?
It's just a comment, and also going out. So we have a lot of factories, and they have resource fairs for some of the immigrant workers there.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been having booths there, and that starts a conversation with management and their resource people on a different level.
Mm-hmm.
We're bringing our stuff out to them.
Right. We partnered in East Palo Alto. We built a guitar lending library, and we reached out to some groups, a group called, I don't remember the name of the group. That was so long ago now. But we reached out to them, and they came in to teach all of our guitar classes. And we got this really great opportunity to talk to the community about how important storytelling is through music to the cultures in our community. And that really resonated with a lot of people. Okay. So now the last one is the most important. The very last thing on this paper is the most important. It's who will you contact to help you connect to this group, and then when will you do it? Okay. So when you guys get back, make sure you come up with a timeline. If you don't give in your directions, if you don't assign it to a person and give a timeline, it's just not going to happen. Make sure you do that kind of thing. All right. Yes, and. So this is talking about opposition. And we're all going to have opposition. You're going to see opposition a lot with your communities. Opposition, you don't need to be scared of it. There's a really easy way to handle it. We have a long paper on handling opposition. If you go to action.everylibrary.org, we have a lot of training guides. All you have to do is sign up to support libraries in order to have access to all those training guides. But there's one in there all about opposition. And how many of you have played, or how many of you have done improv? Right? A number of you? Now, the thing about improv is you can't say no, right? That's the big key to improv. You can't join an improv skit and somebody's like, I'm walking down the dog, and you're like, no, you're not. I guess that we're done, right? I mean, that's the end of it. But in improv, instead of that, you use yes and. So yeah, I'm walking down the street, I'm walking my dog. Yeah, and a car comes down the road, and then we get in the scene carries on. Okay. When we're handling opposition, by saying no, or by saying no but, or using either of those, what you're actually doing is you're setting up a barrier between you two now. You're setting up a disagreement. Now it becomes personal. Now they have to prove their point. Now they have to argue with you. But if you say yes and, you shut that down. You shut down that disagreement. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But also, or yes, and also this, right? So if somebody says, we don't need libraries anymore, we have Google. That's why I always respond with something like, yeah, you're right, we have Google. It's a great tool. And the library also provides all this other great stuff. Now, they can't disagree with you. They can't argue with you because you've already agreed with them, right? They can, and sometimes they do. But almost all the time, most of the time, they can't argue with you. They can't say, yeah, but we don't need all those other things, or they have to disagree with you in a different way. And a lot of times, if they're talking about taxes or they're talking about anything else, these yes and statements really, really help deliver that. And there's a bigger explanation, but I'm really far behind, aren't I? Am I really far out of time? Yeah, we need to move on. Okay. So I'm not going to get too deep into it, but please, there's an opposition paper in action.everylibrary.org in the training guides.
I just wanted to say the other reason to use yes and is it indicates you heard them. They feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really powerful thing.
Yeah, and it becomes personal, right? It becomes a personal fight that they then have to win. Yeah. Okay.
You can wrap. Do the wrap.
Oh.
Yeah. But I need to say something when you're done.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I'm done.
He's done. This has been lovely so far, and we're certainly not finished yet. We're going to come back after a few moments of break time and do some collaborative work together and do some sharing and some best practices. This is a valuable place to come back to. We are scheduled to go through 5 p.m. I'd invite you to hit up the table for some free stuff that's left, mostly water, maybe a little bit of coffee. But please do attempt to return at 3:40, no later. We're going to clap twice then. Thank you. Hey folks, how we all doing? Everybody had a nice opportunity to take a deep breath, I hope? Okay, cool. That's great. So, listening to Patrick, listening to Rebecca, listening to Lindsay, talking about this idea that librarianship is a key element of it. We did talk a lot of messaging with Patrick just now about the library. It's kind of a path dependency that we have, It's all cool because we got to talk about where's the money going. The image of who's spending the money though. I want you guys to be able to come out of here with some working models today for this in your own communities. I want you to be able to have the realization that I had when I first went through this candidate training with Patrick Sweeney, which was when he put up that slide about what's your book? That slide that says, what's your book? The one that says strategic plan, if you got one, management plan, which you have to have, I hope, your facilities plan, your fiduciary plan, your fundraising goals. When you put up that slide, I thought to myself, I wish we would have titled our strategic plan when I was board president for the Berwyn Public Library. I wish we'd have titled our strategic plan Dreams of My Berwyn Public Library. It takes a village where my library is in the middle of it. That it would be, I wish we would have had that title. Because that is where then State Senator Obama started articulating his vision. Started articulating how he wanted to see America different. He started articulating and then took it on this. I wish I would have known that then, when I was on staff there. I hope each of you can have a little moment like that today, where there's been a little bit of inspiration. I really do. I want to invite my colleague, Brian Hart, up to take us through number 6 here on our agenda and to explore some tactics from his own experience, as well as to invite the room to participate and we can share together. Oh, and that was my only tip. Just name your strategic plan after a very famous politician's book. You'll be all set. That won't backfire.
All right. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you, John, for allowing me the opportunity to come and share and participate in this collaboratory experience. I'm really excited to be here. I feel like I'm slightly, perhaps gravely, a much lesser known commodity in this ecosystem, as John likes to say. So I will just kind of give you a little bit of information about myself, if that's okay. So I am, unlike John and PC Patrick Sweeney, I am not a handsome political strategist. I am simply a librarian by trade, and primarily, I do have this in common with Patrick. I was a children's services librarian for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library, and prior to that, Charlotte gets some love, right? And prior to that, also with the Howard County library system in Columbia, Maryland, and also at Richland County in Columbia, South Carolina. So I've been up and down along the East Coast here. So I'm really excited that this is in Florida this year. So anyhow, and I want to apologize as well. Very hoarse. We hosted an event at Howl at the Moon here in Orlando, and I took it literal. Took it very literally. I'm so enamored with Patrick that I didn't want to disappoint, so I howled at the moon. And now this is what you have. So we're librarians, right? We're library administrators. We're para-librarians, as was stated earlier, and that's particularly important. And that's why we're here to kind of reframe the discussion around librarians and talk about some strategic ways that we can re-engage the community and have them thinking more about us as individuals, right? So that when they hear about attacks, they're not so upset, they're not so caught off guard, but rather maybe they can sympathize and want to help and encourage us to continue to do our work because they're familiar and personal, maybe have established personal relationships with us as the people who drive and push the libraries forward. Did that do it? Okay, great. Patrick, this actually was up here a bit earlier, these 7 points, and but it talked again a bit more about your story. Here it talks about, or it's reframed to kind of illustrate why it is important to have that story. And many of you alluded to the fact earlier that it's a progression, right? It's a process, and it's important to start early and continue the process as you go forth with establishing those connections with people in different subsets and sectors of the community, and nurturing those relationships, making sure that they are viable, that they're well taken care of, so that when it is time to go to the polls, or when there is a call to action for the community to turn out and support the library, that they do so, because your message previously or your relationship with them previously has resonated and stuck with them. So talk about your plans early and often. Introduce staff to the public at all levels, and not only introduce, but encourage staff at all levels. One of the things that I was most excited about in my experiences at, do I need to go back to that previous slide? Yes. Very well. I'll also use this opportunity to. So yeah, drink more coffee and more water or bourbon, as the case may be. Whatever the meeting entails, whatever the meeting calls for, be prepared to be there and be relatable to whomever your particular stakeholder is at that time. I think that's incredibly important. Ask them to join you, but not just join you, but also, join in. Make them understand, communicate that it is what they're joining isn't just you and you guys are going rogue, but that they're joining in on a movement and they're joining in support of other librarians and the library as well. Spend money to get likes. I don't know if this was asked yet, and I apologize if I'm asking again, but how many of you guys spend money on Facebook advertisements? I'm not, there's no judgment for those of you who didn't raise your hands, because that's something that I've been very resistant and about as well, but it's very beneficial and it's useful because it allows you to, kind of drill down and target a specific audience in your community, and it's really effective. So, I encourage you to do that. Just really use and social media and other forms of media, e-newsletters, even print and paper newsletters to communicate the value of the library, but also the librarians to your community. In these e-newsletters or on these Facebook posts, it can totally feature one of your staff members. It can totally feature one of your community members who is there and raving about one of your staff members or one of your library employees. And that, just like that last point says, number 7, that is how you continually educate the stakeholders about your worth and your well-being as well in the community, how you're doing as a entity, and how your librarians and staff are doing as well, and carrying out the hopes and aspirations of the community. This diagram again will be made available, as Mr. Linkus, Dr. Linkus has said, but I just want to point out that this is about the people, right? A lot of different nouns and things there, but each of these are people. Even when you see church, those are people, right? So it's important to be a person and to really focus on those one-on-one exchanges, those personal exchanges that help develop some equity between your community and your librarians. Humanize your social media. We talked about that, and again, that entails featuring or talking about your librarians as opposed to just focusing on publicizing or promoting an event. Talk about which of your staff members are going to be leading or ushering that event. That can add a lot to the program, and also to how the community receives you and your programs. Library card sign-ups, going door to door during the month of September. It's not a completely unfamiliar concept, but it is extremely effective. And so I would encourage you guys to do those things as well. And look past job titles. She is taking a picture of that specific sentence there. Look past job titles. That is really, really important. One personal story that I will share, when I was working at Richland County Library, which is now Richland Library in Columbia, South Carolina, I was a library assistant part-time, and 6 months after being hired and serving in that capacity, I was promoted. I like to say I earned, but I really felt like I was just promoted. I was promoted to a role of library assistant to full-time, which also kind of served as a circulation manager. But because the system at the time hadn't really clearly defined what their library assistants were doing, I was extended a whole lot of opportunities to contribute and touch the organization in many, many ways. I served on the teen committee, helping to develop and create programs for teens, and not just like at my branch where I was a circulation manager or library assistant, but throughout the system. And it really led to a lot of doors opening, not only for myself as an individual, as a one librarian, but also library assistant too, but also opening up doors for the system, I believe. It's really important to look past job titles and to embrace staff members at every level of the organization because they offer different perspectives. And I think I was also recently, most recently, I served as an assistant director for Middle Georgia Regional Library. And I think it's very important that we remember when we hire staff, why we hired them, why were we wooed, why were we convinced that they were the right hire at the time. And typically it was something about their personality, right? So it's important to position them in places and give them opportunities where that personality can actually shine through. We talked about drinking more coffee, and I apologize if it seems like we're bouncing all over, but all of this stuff is relative, and it all ties right back into hand in hand. So drinking more coffee. Why we emphasize that? Why we emphasize, arranging these meetings and taking the bull by the horns and going out to, meet people, meet constituents, meet stakeholders, meet the mayor, meet whomever where they are, is because that gives you an opportunity to convey to them what you're doing. So often our language is focused on us as service providers, but I think when you sit down and you look across at the table from whomever the person may be, you're able to say that you're not just a service provider, but that you're a significant partner. You're able to, bring something to the table, and that encourages them, that can perk their ears and make them want to be involved with what you're doing, and they'll support what you're doing. And a lot of times, not that any politician is too self-serving, but a lot of times it helps, and they want to get involved so that it can help to carry out their own agendas as well. And I mean, that's just a fact, I think. So I mentioned that I was given some opportunities while I was at Richland County, and one of the opportunities was to create or spearhead a summer reading initiative. And so the initiative was called Read Between the Rhymes, and it was an online book club essentially. But the reason why we called it Read Between the Rhymes is because we sought to pair the library system with a local radio station, right? Hence the rhymes. Real clever. That was clever, right? All right. But so we paired the library with the radio station, and it was just kind of a way to reach a new audience, right? The radio station already had an audience that, some of which were aware of the library. They were visitors, they were users, but even those that weren't visitors or users or didn't necessarily need the services as much as, we like to think, it was also just a way to get the library in their ears, right? So the radio station was really receptive to this idea because it helped them kind of fulfill a public service announcement. And once we kind of made some waves with this and we started to gain some traction, we were actually able to pitch it to the mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, which is, the biggest, the city in Richland County. And he also got on board and himself recorded a PSA. And he wasn't hoarse when he did it, so I'm going to play it for you. Let me cue it up here. And I know this probably feels like a little unprofessional, right? Because I'm having to play it from my phone into the mic. But Lauren Camito, she would be so happy right now because she did a presentation earlier this week about how we put too much emphasis on professionalism in in libraries. So tell Lauren that I did this. That's if it plays, of course. If it doesn't play, let's just forget about it. All right, here we go. Uh-oh, wait. We're going to get it together, don't worry. We're not going to let Lauren down. It's too late in the game.
This month's book is one of your all-time favorites, or you're hearing about it for the first time, go to www
www.myrctl.com/team and let us know what you think. Then visit your local Richland County Public Library branch. Take a second to answer a few questions for your chance to win. Read Between the Rhymes, brought to you by Richland Public Library and the most R&B and hip hop 100.1 The Beat.
Yeah, so I just thought that was really good, and he was receptive to it because we began the conversations early on. There's a lot of different emails that were exchanged, a lot of different conversations. Some of them pleasant, some of them unpleasant, but that's comes with the territory. But it was just a really good opportunity for us to present an identifiable, relatable message to the community, and for the mayor to be on board was an awesome. Prospect. And I will say this, that he's still the mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, so it's clearly worked out well for him, because that 94% of parents who believe that the library is really beneficial to their child's upbringing and their child's development heard the mayor say that, right? So he's still in office, and the Richland Library is still thriving as well. So I'm not saying it's a direct correlation, but I'm saying I worked at Richland Library, so. I'm gonna close. I'm gonna wrap up and just say that I think it's really important to, again, empower the librarians or para-librarians, wherever they are at in the organization, give them the opportunities to make meaningful contributions, and I think it'll turn out to be a success for all involved. Don't be afraid to take risk. The most important thing is that you just take action, right? So thank you.
When I got Every Library started as a new organization in the library advocacy ecosystem, I guess it's called. Not ecosystem, Brian? Okay, whatever. No, you're telling me. I'd go out to people and say, I got this idea for a political action committee for libraries. We're going to work on library ballot measures at the local level. It's going to be a super PAC for libraries. They would say to me one of three things: I like what you're doing. Keep me informed. That's an opt-in, folks. Okay? This is not patron privacy. This isn't confidentiality issues. That's an opt-in. John, I like what you guys are doing. Keep me informed. You also have to anticipate before you go out that you have to have some mechanism by which to keep them informed. We're putting the train together as it's running down the tracks is not the best. But sometimes then you're like, okay, I'll send you our newsletter that I'm writing in my head right now. Okay, the newsletter, okay. John, I support what you're doing. This is a really interesting idea. What's the next thing? You got to have it for them. You got to have it ready. Okay, for us, it was donate or volunteer. Donate, volunteer, share your networks with me. How could you do that? We had to be prepared. Because what I was doing as the CEO, the executive director of a new advocacy organization, was I was honestly Dread Pirate Roberts. My business card and the fact that I've got some competency with a sword or a rapier and dagger, that was it. My infrastructure was zero. And we were still able to then say, I'll keep you informed through the newsletter. I need your volunteer time. I need your money. I need your good name. John, I want to identify us with what you are doing. I want to identify myself with what you're doing, John. But 5 people said yes to that level. It's not a pyramid. It's like, maybe it's like one of those Mayan pyramids. It's all stepped, 5 people. Half of them are in the room. Sweeney, Erica, Lindsay, when she was on the board, Brian Bromberg, Mel Gooch, who's at home right now. That's enough of a team. When they say launch the exploratory team, or build your exploratory team, as the candidate surfacing process, if you want to flip back in your notes, one of them right before you launch the campaign is to get your exploratory team together. It's only a couple humans. Most of this work is going to be done by the usual suspects plus like 2 or 3 people who've gotten their hearts activated. They've got their hearts activated and they got enough time or enough network. You can get this done with like 6 or 8 people. And if they're behind you as the candidate, or they're behind all y'all as the librarians as candidate, All right, I am not the first person to do this. You all have been there before in one way, shape, or form. Brian shared with you a very nice opportunity that he did where he walked into the radio station and they said, not just I like what you're doing, Brian, but I want to support what you're doing. It's the same. I want to hear more from the room. We have a lot of learning from each other. We got a lot of learning from each other. I'd like to hear more from you all. As you're listening to this presentation, as you're taking some of these notes, as you're doing this kind of work, what's your best moment on this? Your own personal point of pride, where it wasn't just about the library, but it was about how you, as the librarian, got it done. Yeah, it might have been to advance the library's mission and purpose, just exactly like the summer reading program did. That advanced the mission and purpose. Where's your point of pride? I want to hear your best stories. Yes, please.
Yes, please. I invited myself to the economic development community. Heard at City Hall as a city department, hey, they're having this, we weren't invited, weren't even on the radar. And ended up walking away with, they went out and told our story, signed up people for our library cards, and just ran with it. And we're so impressed with the resources we had, particularly the databases, that they could help their entrepreneurs.
What was different about that from the status quo? Have you had a long-standing good relationship with him? Was it activating you personally, or did you do something different?
Yeah, no, we had no relationship with the economic development community. Times were bad in Michigan, things were getting worse. I thought there was a role we could play, so I went out there and put myself out there.
Yeah.
And they embraced it.
So cool.
And it's happening now. My current community went to the chamber, went to the DDA, and the library had never been there before.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. We recently, this is not a story about me, but it's about a fellow I know. We recently went to a board of county commissioners with some mill levy work and some funding opportunities. And this guy I know is a young, maybe 25-year-old transgender homeless man who has a 2-year-old and uses the library for his sideline of tutoring so that he can make enough money to sort of keep a roof over his head. And he showed up at that board meeting and told the commissioners without us prompting him, look, I need this place because it makes my life better. And it sold it.
Yeah, to be a proxy, for the candidate. That was one of the earlier slides we mentioned. Sometimes every candidate knows that it's always a coalition. It's the Democrats plus the independents. It's the Republicans plus the independents. It's not just, we don't have a majority of either party. There's always a coalition. The other part of it is that the proxy. To go build out the coalition, you need somebody from inside that space. Or you need somebody who's legitimately representing you. We have a sort of problem with the way that we do advocacy in this industry where we expect somebody's going to show up magically for you. Yeah, that doesn't work. If you don't ask that person to go on Meet the Press and brief them about your position on foreign policy or domestic policy, and you're running for president, they don't spontaneously show up to that stuff. That's engineered. If this gentleman showed up on his own, that's wonderful. We got a pixie. But that's got to be engineered. Yeah. Yes, please.
In Citrus County, we've started going out to the fairs and having a table and telling people who don't use our library what we're about.
Yeah. Can I ask, are you standing behind the table or in front of the table when you go out to that fair?
It's a U, so we're out in front.
Good. Good. That's real nice. Yes?
If you can afford it, I really recommend having a mascot. We have Otterby reading, and Otterby goes to the soccer games once a month, and he does dance-offs. We have a minor league baseball team. He's Dinger, their mascot's best friend. I threw a first pitch a couple of weeks ago. Honestly, we end up with more stuff by just being willing to be foolish. I mean, I have no problem with being made a fool of.
Yes.
I can outthrow baseball to save my life. And those are the kinds of things. But I want to tell actually a really quick story. I went to a town hall meeting hosted by a state senator a couple of weeks ago. With him was a former congressperson who's very interested in the career online high school program, for which we're the second library in the United States to have adopted. I went up, reintroduced myself to him because he had come to our high school graduation.
I had 1 minute to speak, and I talked about the libraries, the fact that California has 181 libraries, and if you want to make the lives of children better, connect with all 181 libraries. And that's about all I had time to say, and talked about, every child ready to read. I sat down. The congressperson then launched into this whole thing about, and the libraries work with adults, and they have this amazing high school graduation program, and then the senator said, my kids are involved in summer reading. We have one of the best summer reading programs in the state of California. So they're telling our story for us. I just had to remind them that I was there.
Yes. You were like, I don't know if anybody watches Veep, but you're like the body man coming in and being like, yes, yes, please.
I was appointed to the Children's Notable Books Committee, and my supervisor sent out a press release, and I asked her to put in there that I was interested in having people help me read the books. And so I ended up with a group of about 60 people, ages 18 months up to 88. And it brought a lot of people into the library that never had used our library before, and it made them feel part of the process. It was really a wonderful experience.
That is a really cool story. I never heard that one before. I like that. That's a cool one. At Santa Barbara? Yeah. The aspect of that the internet can't do, okay? Let me tell you something here. The internet companies, these gigantic .coms, South by Southwest was full of them not too long ago, where they're trying to build a discovery layer, They're trying to do like findability, like the recommendation. You involve the community in the process of building out good reviews and recommendations. For somebody to come up to you and say to you, in the day-to-day work that you do, oh, I was really interested in X, and can you tell me about something else to read? You guys do that all the time. You know how massive that is? People trust you with their health because of that, not just their enjoyment. They trust you with your financial future. They trust you personally with their financial future. I need a book about estate planning, saving, whatever. I mean, do not take that for granted. And that's something that the institution doesn't have a brand ID on at all. It's always the librarians who do that. It's always the humans who do that. I love how you did that with those folks too, because they have a chance to do something that every issue advocacy organization, okay, if the library is the institution, if the library is the incumbent in the race, you have a record to defend, or you run against yourself, Fundamentally, like when we go out for money, we either say new money extends our success, re-elect us. As an institution, re-elect us. Or new money fixes problems, get rid of our problems, we'll get rid of the shyster who doesn't take care of us. You run against yourself. If the librarian is candidate, that's true, in our opinion, because it's the embodiment, it's the personification, but any cause organization, if the library is a cause, which I think it is, then the librarians are the community organizers. And community organizers bring people on trips to go and stand in a picket line, to go build the house for Habitat. They bring the folks out to learn in firsthand ways. And barring that, they'll tell a dramatic story. I don't give money to Greenpeace because I've been on a dinghy saving the whales myself. I can experience it from the stories, that go on. But to involve people then on a special trip to clean up the beaches with Greenpeace, you've done that. That's fantastic. I'm sorry, I just went off on a little thing because I never heard that before. Now I'm going to integrate it in everything I talk about. All right. Who else got a best practice? Tell me about being a librarian. Gretchen, you want to talk? I can tell.
Sorry? Yeah.
I got involved with the chamber as well, and they started a steering committee that looked at a lot of different economic development surveys that had been done in different spaces, and kind of pulled those all together, and we're able to leverage these change people's perceptions, visualizing the things that we've been talking about and making it feel more real to some of those stakeholders that couldn't see it. They couldn't see it with our words, so we found a way to visualize it in physical space.
Well, cool. Thank you. Yes, please.
Sure. When last year we reached out to our legislative delegation in Florida. We reached out, and I worked with my county's legislative affairs department and the director there knew have really good relationships. We reached out and invited all the legislative affairs, the delegation to come into their local library and just see what it is, because we had just finished a major expansion program. So over half of the delegation accepted the letter, either the candidate, either the representative himself or one of their staff came in. And it did have an impact because one of them in our district, the state senator, is the leader of is the ranking member for the opposition up in the state capitol. And when it came time to the budget, we had told him about our state aid, and he moved to advance, put more money into state aid. And it got approved at that subcommittee level. Unfortunately, the thing died at the end during the reconciliation process, but he actually stood up and said, we need to put more money in there, and it was unopposed in the subcommittee. So we were very happy he championed us. Unfortunately, it didn't end up as well as we hoped, but we knew that was part of the process we had.
Ronald Reagan ran for president 4 times before he was elected. He was the significant challenger to Gerald Ford. Okay, he ran for president 4 times. Mitt Romney ran for president a bunch of times. You don't get a lot of Obamas. Who else wants to share? Okay. You guys are amazing, by the way. I mean, it's Monday of conference. This has been a highly engaged and thoughtful group. I am really impressed with you all. I think that in terms of, being the candidate, to reframe the book that you've already got, to take a deep dive into that and say, okay, but to also then take some practice time being out doing your stump speech and doing some voter engagement in a way that isn't political. When I say voter engagement, I mean constituent engagement. I mean donor engagement as well. We got summer reading. All of you who are in public libraries are in the depths of it. Those of you who are in academic libraries, you got that lovely lacuna now, and in schools. There is the September kickoff to when everybody's kind of back to normal. And the idea that library card sign up for Publix and the library card sign up for schools is a bridge, and the library card, if you've got a campus community that you want to reach out, in a different way, what's your ID point? The candidate, we put up the slide before about doing library cards door to door. Doing something door to door in your community, whether you can, because it's a dense urban suburban environment. If you can't do door to door literally and you got to be at the fair the whole time, that's cool. But to do something that says, hi, I'm John, I'm running for mayor. Here's what I believe about my town. Please elect me. Hi, I'm John, I'm with the Obama campaign or the Romney campaign. My person believes this. I'm voting for him or her. Join me. Hi, I'm John. I'm your librarian. I'm coming to visit your house today to see if you need this most basic form of enfranchisement to all the things that go on at this institution. Fantastic. Let's sign you up right here. No, you don't? That's all right. Doesn't matter. Here's the other card. Here's my business card. I'm the Dread Pirate Roberts. I'm your librarian. To do that, human-to-human contact, when you've got nothing that you're trying to advance. Sweeney talked about how you got to get this long game, the early work. To do a special engagement with your community, there's 5 different reasons to do it. There's we're underserved over here. Great. There's a lot of new people in the community who've just moved in this subdivision. Great. There's a lot of current library card users here, and we need to make sure that they know we love them in a really, oh no, we already have a card. Fantastic. Let's have a love fest. Here's a brochure. We can help you with it. I would love to see every library and librarian out on the streets for a couple days in September. I really would. It'd be huge. Yes, please.
That I totally agree with. The people who don't agree with that, you get pushback from. And that's where the rub lies, right? I built a library in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of things that you talked about, and started talking about it early on, and, you know, waged a campaign. We won 2/3 of the vote on the first try, which is unheard of, and built a $1.8 million project. But, I mean, there are also, you know, renovation and addition. But I'm not there right now, because I expended all of my personal capital, political capital, on that building. And now there's a new direct hire basically running my library, right? So I went to the dump. You know, you all know what a dump is. Transfer station, I don't know what you call it there. And I got shit for standing there to ask questions, answer questions, I'm sorry, you know, about the project that we were building. I got serious shit. And and then my trustees had to scramble to sort of, you know.
From whom did you get shit?
From the naysayers in town who didn't want the library, and didn't want me lobbying them.
Yeah, you know who really doesn't want to hear Donald Trump's stump speech is Hillary Clinton. And vice versa.
So it's just, I hear you, but it's not just going out there. You'll hear people say, what's that librarian doing out on the street? They should be behind the desk where they belong.
Right.
So you can't just say go out and do it because there's pushback.
No, I'm going to tell you to go out and do it for two reasons. And I agree with you, there's always pushback, and here's why I'm telling you about, like, yeah, my yes and with you is yes, you're going to get pushback, and hide it within your normal provision of services. Library card sign-up month. It's done every year. Last year, our stats were X and Y and Z for people walking in off the street. This year, we're going to try a different technique in addition to that and send our staff out. How many surveys that you have done for strategic planning where you've gotten 50 people responding on a Survey Monkey and you thought you had a good sample? Hi, I'm John. I'm running an absolutely mission-critical, necessary, normal provision of service strategic planning survey. I have to ask you these questions. I'm a public servant. You know? Get them used to it. We got 5 questions for you. Are you a user or non-user is the first question. I'll take the pink sheet for the users. I'll take the green sheet for the non-users. I have to go out on the street because last time around we didn't have a big enough sample. Couch it, okay, in your normal provision of services until they're used to seeing you out in the street. Yes, and. Yes, and.
Are you going to talk at all about how to do sort of internal advocacy for librarians? Getting your staff on board? Getting your management on board?
Oh, getting your management on board.
Administration on board?
Yes.
That's my other point.
Have them call me.
Yeah. You poor people who now know what you have to do and you got to go back and try and get it done.
What's that?
Okay. I can give you general answers, but I'd actually like to talk more specifically because you are a politician right now. If you are the candidate, you are a politician. If you are running a department that has 5% of the budget or 50% of the budget, or you're managing a multi-million-dollar agency, the other people who want a piece of that pie, the dude with the dump truck, who runs public service, who's got a cigar, he knows he's a politician. How do you manage it within specifically your institution? I'd love to talk to you about it. But in general, the principles of, you guys have discovered something new here at this conference that you can bring back as you're learning. That if your library is currently offering marketing out to the user community that's focusing on customers and you're showing off the customers, you could talk about how that's great, it's the best practice and all that kind of stuff, but you found a secret weapon. That the secret weapon on marketing now is actually to show off the staff who are doing it. And that the incremental change that you could help bring around would be to humanize your social media. That the shift from, your first step here, your shift from at 10 o'clock on Friday, we've got story time at the Haynes branch, to at 10 o'clock on Friday, Miss Karen is doing story time. She loves your kids. Just that begins a process. But then I really want to talk specific strategy with anybody who wants to, quite frankly. I want to see you succeed. All the voices that you heard today, except for Rebecca's and David's to a certain extent, are part of our team. You know, Brian's full-time, Patrick's full-time, I'm full-time. I want to see this change that you want to see. That's why we're in this business. So, I would like to invite my colleague Peter Brownberg up because I was just about to start doing what you are here to do. So, before we go, anything else that's burning in your hearts in terms of sharing? Okay. Oh, sorry. There we go.
Toastmasters shake.
Absolutely.
There we go.
So we're probably give him 10 at the end. So 20, 12, something like that.
Something like that. All right. Hi, everyone. You having a good day? Yeah? You laughing a little bit here today during some of our talks? Yeah? Feeling a little bit of inspiration? Learning some stuff? That's great. So here's my question. So what? So you laughed a little bit, feel some inspiration. So you learned something. Was that the goal here today, to learn something? I'm going to suggest that it's not. The goal is to do something differently, right? What changes as a result of the couple hours you've spent here today? And by the way, thank you for coming, really, on a Monday afternoon after conference and spending all this time. That's amazing, right? So this question, so what? This is the bridge between the time you just spent here, the inspiration, the laughter, the learning, and what happens after you walk out that door, get on the plane or get in your car, go home. What's going to happen differently as a result? So to help answer that question, we're going to spend a little bit of time doing some reflecting, and we're going to do just a brief exercise. What's Patrick's? You still here? What was it? What's yours? 27.93, right? So we're pretty close here to Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral, right? So I'm going to suggest we do a 3-2-1, and the 3-2-1. And I apologize, there's not a sheet in your handout for this, so somewhere where you can find some blank paper. The three are 3 ahas or insights, okay? And I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. I'll give you the whole framework so you know what's about to happen. You'll have about 5 minutes to write this down. I'm going to ask you to discuss for about 5 minutes at your tables, and then we'll come back and we'll do a. Oh, there you go. Thanks, my scribe. 3 ahas or insights. At some point today where you're like, oh wait, I got to get that one, right? That moment where you go, I never thought of it that way. I'm looking at something differently. Those moments, 3 of those. And then I want you to write down 2 things that you could do when you get home. And then I want you to circle one of those 2 things and commit. What is the one thing that you will do when you get home? And for extra credit, not just circle that one thing, but who here has a smartphone with them or a laptop? Who has a smartphone? Who has a calendar on their smartphone? No, it's not. I want you to put this thing that you're committing to do on your calendar. Pick a day and pick a date, and a time, and set the reminder, and make it within like the next 2 weeks. Don't put it too far out. I know a week we got some catch up to do. Somewhere within the next, couple days. Don't go any further out than 2 weeks. And then for extra credit, tell someone that you're going to do it. And like right here at the table, whether you know someone or not, say, this is what I'm committing to doing, and here's what I'm committing to do it by, when I'm committing to do it by, and exchange email addresses. And say, okay, please contact me on this date, and I want you to call me or email me with one question. What did you do? Right? That's it. You said you were going to do this. What did you do? So, and there's a lot of research when we write something down and when we actually set a day and a date, the likelihood that we actually do it goes way up. And when we actually tell another human being that we're going to do something, and we know that they're going to call us and ask us if we did it, well, all of a sudden, accountability goes way, way up. So this is a gift to yourself if you want to try these things. Okay, so we're going to have 5 minutes to write kind of reflect, and then I'll cue you. We'll do 5 minutes of some talking at the table, and then we'll just come back and we'll do some group sharing. And then before we go, I'm going to invite Catherine Dice up for just a few final words. Okay, so 5 minutes. Okay, I lied. I'm giving you 4 minutes. So I still see there's some pens still moving, but let's move into talking at your tables a little bit. And if you still hadn't finished writing or thinking, maybe some of the conversation might even trigger some thoughts that you didn't otherwise have. So at your tables, and if you're at a smaller table and you want to group up with a larger one, so you have some people to speak with, just talk for a few minutes about what were your ahas. What were your key insights, and what types of things are you thinking about doing and committing to doing when you get home? So we'll do this for about, we'll take three or 4 minutes for this. Okay. So talk amongst yourselves.
Okay, so wow, a lot of buzz in the room. So let's just talk a little bit about what were some of your ahas, some of your key insights, and kind of lightning round it. Like, we only have a couple minutes, so call it out, say a sentence or two. What was it that? Yeah.
Humanizing the marketing. Humanizing the marketing.
Humanizing the marketing. Okay. Yeah. You don't have to do it all yourself. And I'm not, like, we're not in school, so if I don't see your hand, you just call it out, Yeah.
The new standards for MLS, I think we can build into our hiring practice and stop hiring people that aren't adaptable and predictable.
Beautiful. Building MLS 21st century, right?
Eliminate job descriptions.
Eliminate job descriptions. No passion behind that.
I really like the idea of building the coalition when you don't have the opposition.
Great.
Because we went through it, building it when we had opposition, and then you're thinking, what a waste.
Yeah.
Then maybe we could
Okay, build it before the opposition. Catherine, were you trying to get my attention?
Yeah, somebody over there.
So, yes. Okay, Catherine.
Google candidate training.
Google candidate training.
Invite yourself to the meeting.
Invite yourself to the meeting, right on.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Decisions are made by the people who show up.
Yeah, that's huge.
You guys might want to.
Yeah.
You make a brand, you have to promise to keep it.
Say again, I'm sorry.
You make a brand, you have to promise to keep it.
Oh, if you make a brand, you have to promise to keep it.
Yeah.
My eyes aren't working well. Just call them out.
Start early. Start early.
Start early and
Promoting the library.
promoting the library as a candidate. Okay.
Knock on the doors.
Knock on the doors.
Couching advocacy in terms of the normal provision of services and the Trojan horse approach.
Right.
Thank you. I love that.
Trojan horse.
Yes.
Couch advocacy in the normal provision of your services. That's super.
Write 2793 statements for all of my services that are under me and use them internally and externally.
All right, 2793, internal, external for every service. All right, how about what did you commit to? Yes.
Introducing my staff.
Introducing your staff to the community? Yeah. I'm not looking over here, I want to make sure. Yeah.
My commitment is going to be, I'm a community college librarian, would be to what Jason Hart said about having more coffee with faculty, and identifying and saying not only I like what you're doing, but trying to create an informal, I want to be part of your entourage.
All right. You're going to have coffee with faculty.
Yeah.
Say,
Specifically the social science faculty.
Oh, good. And specific is good. The more specific, the more likely you're going to follow through. So that's good. What other commitments do we have?
I want to put in writing answers to the who's spending my money, how and why for my no tax people.
All right. We're gonna get this in writing. We're going to work on some of these activities that we had here today. Flush them out. Yeah.
Tackle the power mapping exercise with staff.
Okay. engage staff with that power mapping exercise.
And we're here as a resource. Like, we don't publish toolkits as Every Library. We want to talk to you about that. So when you want to prep for it, give us a shout.
So, let's have 3 more. Come on.
Start a listserv.
Same one. Start a listserv.
Oh,
For whom? To whom?
Announce library news to the community.
Oh, great. Okay, so the library news listserv for the community. Super. Nancy.
For an academic library, agree on the theme and then make each of the liaisons to departments come up with their messages so they not only start to participate in the process, but they get a little bit more familiar with how they might interact better and what the message might be to their constituents.
All right, so we're going to get a theme, or we're going to get a bunch of people doing their messaging inside that theme. So last one. Who wants the last one? Yeah.
Communicate the Hickok rule to the staff, because I do that already. I've never called it that, of course. I'm in a public library. But the staff perceives, for example, the Board of Trustees as their enemy. So, to give that to the staff and get them on board.
All right, the Hickok rule. Super. All right, well, that was great. And I'm sorry I don't have more time to hear from everyone, but I think I said I'm going to invite Catherine Dice up for a couple last words, and we're doing one last rejiggering here, so I'm actually going to be inviting John Kraska up to say some words, and then he will be inviting Mr. Mays. Dr.
Since there are so many Princess Bride fans in the room, I thought I would use my other Princess Bride story on you. It's the coda to all of this. They're on the parapet of the castle. Wesley's been dead for most of the day. They got the pill from Miracle Max headphones storming into the castle. It's right after that. They give Wesley the pill. He wakes up, and he's mostly dead, And he says, okay, what's the situation? What are our liabilities? And they say, well, there are 50 men guarding the castle gate. There's but one key. Your bride is about to be, your princess is about to be wed to the man she hates. And then he says, what are our assets? And Indigo says to him, it's your brains, his strength, and my steel. And then Wesley says, if we only had a Holocaust cloak. If we only had a wheelbarrow. There were hidden assets all over the place. I'm not exaggerating. This is like the best story ever for startups. That and Ghostbusters, where they say to each other, well, it looks like we've finally gotten kicked out of the university. We have to go into business for ourselves. Like those two movies for startup ideas. What are your assets? What's your Holocaust cloak? What is your wheelbarrow? Barrel? It's been a real pleasure to be with you guys tonight. I've enjoyed the chance to bring our team forward. I'm going to speak on their behalf. I appreciate Rebecca and Lindsay in her capacity at the university, but staying with us too for the journal. I want to be very clear in my invitation for you to contact us. We are here to serve and work with you on a pro bono basis because of people like Paul Ridgway and TechLogic. They support us in our activities. Let us do this kind of work on a pro bono basis. I want to hear from you. We can talk through, what the specific issues are. Sometimes it's a big team thing. Sometimes it's a big initiative. Sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. If I could be the director whisperer here, I'm happy to do it. I do want to also invite you to sign up, please, for our info from Every Library. action.everylibrary.org. And you're all writing it down. God bless you. If you're not already, it's action.everylibrary.org. Every library. The newsletter kind of stuff that we put out, the best practices, the teachings, I want you to be able to look over our shoulder. We've been very effective, and I would like you to be able to look over our shoulder at what we're doing. I also want you to become a donor someday, but we'll talk about that later. Thanks again, folks. David?
Thank you very much.
This is the joy of my work is I get to work with smart people. And I include everyone in this room, absolutely. So we ended up in a very interesting spot 4 hours later. Thank you for those who hung in. And what I really want to respond to, really emphasize, and once again, then we're going to stick with our good meetings and we'll end 10 minutes early. is that when we start talking about advocacy, even at the beginning of this day at 1 o'clock, advocacy, we're going to librarians, and we talk about the UK situation, we talk in these grand schemes. And when we come to Orlando, or when we come to Atlanta in midwinter, or when we come to Chicago, whatever it is, we tend to talk about these big things. Libraries transform. How can we make libraries more important? We talk about them in these global senses. And I think we've all been in one form or another, whether it's for our library, whether it's for our state library, organization, whatever it is, we've all been involved in that call for advocacy, and it almost always turns into what's going to be on the poster. Right? What's the tagline? Where are we going to go from it? And then it sort of turns into, okay, now that we've got this great idea, what are we really going to do? And who's going to do it? And who's going to be put on the spot? And that could have been this conversation. I mean, I give lots of keynote speeches where, frankly, I'm there to give the 30,000-foot view, and I get a lot of people who are like, oh, great, library future, yay. But what I really love how today was crafted, and I thank John and his group. I thank every, see, I'm going to sleep too. I thank TechLogic. I thank every library. I thank Catherine. I think all the people who helped put this together, because it was to think differently about whether you want to call it engagement, whether you want to call it relationship, or whether you want to call it advocacy. The idea is to start locally. We don't need to wait for a poster on this will be the National Realtors ad campaign and we'll buy a Super Bowl ad. What I heard and the things that I'll take away, answering Peter's question, was first of all, an intentional brand. That we have to realize that there is nostalgia in our field and it is wrapped around our brand. In some ways, it is holding us back. That's the whole idea behind Expect More, was just to challenge people in the community that, yes, I understand you have a lovely, warm feeling that when you were 8, but we didn't stand still now that you're 48. And I would love to show you what we've come up with in the past 4 decades. And it's built on that lovely nostalgia. Our people talked about the staff. We're not coming to say, oh, we're doing everything differently, forget it, all that crap that you did. And Mark, what? We couldn't do this without your work, your participation over the years, decades, centuries that we've been doing these. What is our brand? And being intentional at that zip code level, and then we can be intentional at the regional level, and then we can be intentional at the state level, and then we can be intentional up it. This session was not about a tagline, but I did take away, this is my tagline, which is, hello, I'm your librarian. Hello, I'm your librarian. Whether that's a door-to-door card or whether that's instead of how can I help you, which can be a rather arrogant statement. Hello, I'm your librarian. Put me to work. Right? And I think that what I really took out of all these really great techniques is that we can start tomorrow. And the first thing that I think everyone should commit to doing with an incremental change is to start highlighting the people doing critical services. That what we are talking about in an advocacy campaign for librarians is a doing approach. Rather than coming up with the poster and the tagline, let's just continue to do our great job and make ourselves a little bit more visible in that process. When the library porn issue comes out about the architecture, let's make sure we have some people in it. And hey, let's make sure some librarians are in there as well. When we talk about these services and what we provide, when we go out and do Wi-Fi services and hotspots, when we talk about summer reading, when we work with the gardening group, and when we're doing all of this to highlight, start the whole session with, hello, I'm your librarian. My name is, and these are the kinds of things I do. Now, let's get to the reading. Hello, my name is, I'm your librarian. Let's get into this program and let's do it. That's where organically we're going to build up this brand. So as libraries succeed, people understand that success comes because librarians are involved in part of it. That our profession, when anyone asks that question about do you need a master's degree for this, or what is it that you do over Thanksgiving dinner, you can say, hello, I am your librarian. I'm the reason that we're here. Right? And we begin to highlight that on a regular basis, that we go out and do that polling, that we go out and do it, talking. Some people will look at this, and some people will say, oh, this is marketing and this is politics. People should simply understand that as librarians, we are neutral, objective, and people should simply assume that we're important. I don't assume that you're important because I had to learn it. You had to learn it. You're here because at some point you took the time to understand the importance of this profession, the importance of what you could do with it. You can share that with other people, not scaring them out of cocktail parties level scary, but the idea of sharing your passion. It's infectious. When you get people with great ideas, when you get people that have great stories, and when you get a round of applause for, by the way, a University of South Carolina alumni who has the mayor on the hook for promoting the libraries, right? That's infectious. Why did we clap? And not just because, yay, it was on the radio. We clap because that's a good idea, and that's what I want to be like that. I was at the awards ceremony when Mulaney Townsend Diggs got the Lemony Snicket Award for opening the door in the midst of Baltimore's meltdown. And there was a standing ovation by this crowd. We look at these people and we say, that makes me proud to be a librarian. And we need to be that passion as well. We need to share it. When you go home, the staff, the trustees, the board, the provost, whatever it is, show them your passion on a regular basis. And begin every amazingly helpful thing you do with, hello, I'm your librarian. And that begins to demonstrate and advocate what we do by doing it. You're absolutely right that we need to talk about how we prepare librarians, right? So we have folks from Maryland, we have folks from South Carolina, we have folks from other library science schools. We're on it. We need to look at how we do that. And we need your passion to show out to those students as well. We need you to send us the right stuff. You see them on a regular basis. Let us work in that partnership. That when they're in your libraries, how can we share that passion? And how can we look at our communities and understand that they also have passions, and our job is to unleash it and let them demonstrate it to the rest of the community. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time and your effort, and I have no doubt that ahead of us we have a fantastic future. Thank you all very much.